Good evening, and welcome to all who are here with us in person and at home as I call the December 10th, 2020 City of Southport Board of Aldermen meeting to order. This is our last meeting for the year 2020, which is a reason to celebrate, and it is our Christmas holiday meeting. For our invocation, we will have a moment of silence for the passing of the mother of Interim City Manager Chris May and for the father of Parks and Recreation Director Heather Hemphill. This will be followed by Alderman John Allen, who has requested to read a most appropriate song, Pray for America. Then remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance. So now please stand for our moment of silence.
Sit down so I can use my microphone if y'all don't mind. It's velcroed to the table. Today's a sad, bittersweet day for our country. We're on the precipice of both a staggering 300,000 Americans who have perished in this terrible pandemic, as well as the approval of the first vaccine that will soon become available to us. The path behind us is dark indeed, and yet the light ahead of us is bright. I'm going to read the first verse and chorus of a song about the pandemic called Pray for America by a band called Old Crow Medicine Show. If you haven't heard it, I'd encourage you to seek it out. When sorrows are befallen and shadows darken her door, when the fever spreads and a silent scourge outshines her golden shores, when a cry for comfort reaches forth like you've never heard before, pray for America, our promised land. America, to thee may God's hand outreach. Lord, have mercy on America. Thank you.
Thank you, Alderman Allen. And again, remember in your prayers the family of Chris May and Heather Hemphill. As you can see, the arrangement of the floor plan for our meeting has changed. My request was that when citizens entered the building, it was similar to what we had in the old City Hall. When you walk in, you see the Board of Aldermen. We're also set up for better social distancing, and you can see that the board is further apart than usual, although it's a disadvantage for me because I can't ask when the city attorney is here a question or get to the city managers. I guess I have to text them during the meeting. This arrangement works well because when we upgrade our audiovisual system, which we're in the process of doing, everyone can see the screen, the TV monitor that will be up on the wall to my right, to your left, which would display documents, videos, PowerPoint presentations during the meeting. This was a group effort led by the entire city staff department heads and led by Communications Director Lisa Anderson. And I would like to thank Lisa and all departments that worked with her, including, of course, the city manager, Mr. Hargrove, Chief Coring, Battalion Chief Treadway, Public Services, Tom Stanley, Kate Marshall, Code Enforcement, Heather Hemphill, Parks and Recreation, Randy Jones, Department of Tourism, City Clerk Tanya Shannon, and anyone else who assisted in turning this into just a better format and certainly a safer format. So I thank you for that. Item D, public comment. If you're here to speak about the CAMA land use plan, I ask that you do so during the public hearing, which is item 1 on the agenda. When you do come up to speak, come up to the podium, remove your mask, press the button to turn on the microphone. The light should turn green. State your name, address, and topic of your comments. Madam City Clerk.
Mr. Richard Alt.
Welcome, Mr. Alt.
Thank you, sir. As you well noted, this is the December meeting. It's the Christmas time, Hanukkah time, holiday time. And I wanted to take a moment because during this whole year, we get into a habit of only coming up here to complain about something. So I'm actually here to compliment you on something. And that is, if anybody read the last rebuke from the state on the audit or the audits of Southport, they might interpret that letter to mean the current one, the one we just finished, and that's not, it's from the year before. And my understanding is that all of those issues have been resolved. The internal issues have been resolved. The new city manager has put in place a process to make sure that it doesn't happen again. The board of Aldermen here has hired an extra CPA to help with that process. So all of you should be happy that you've finally been able to put the issues of the past boards and managers that could not seem to correct this issue. All of you have corrected it, and you're moving forward in the right direction, and I wish you a happy holiday.
Thank you, sir. Same to you. Happy holiday. Madam Clerk. Okay. Is there anyone else that would like to speak in public comment? Okay, thank you. Item E, approval of the agenda. We have 11 items on the agenda, including the public hearing on the 2014 Campbell Land Use Plan. So multiple issues for our board to discuss tonight. Do I have a motion to approve the agenda? Okay. Mayor Pro Tem and then Mr. Lombardi is the second. Any further discussion? Okay. All in favor? Okay, motion carried. Thank you. Item F, special recognitions. The first will be a check presentation from Downtown Southport Incorporated for the Weather Tower Restoration Project. DSI has been a leader in promoting economic development and historic preservation in our city. They have donated thousands of hours for the Spring Festival, Summer Market, and Winter Festival, and donated thousands of dollars to projects that enhance our city. I call on President of DSI, Peggy Poplars, to talk about this nonprofit and introduce the DSI board members here with her for the check presentation. Thank you, Peggy, and thank you, DSI.
Mr. Mayor, was it clear that this is $5,000? Good.
Yes. $5,000, and I appreciate that so much. And Ms. Poplars, if you would just introduce those that were here with you. Thank you, and thank you for that very generous contribution. Our next special recognition is something that is close to everyone's heart, not only on the board, but not only the city employees, but the entire city. Mr. Wayne Strickland, building inspector, is retiring, and I would like to read a proclamation, and then the board and I would like to come up front here and present him with the key to the city. So I'll read the proclamation first. Whereas the city of, where's Wayne? Please come up. Please stand with me, then we'll get a picture up there. It is an honor for me as mayor to do this, and I know you have served many mayors and many city managers in your almost 26 years, and we are grateful for your service and honor your wisdom and your expertise. And I now read the proclamation, and I as mayor have appreciated your friendship all these years, and Mary's. Whereas the city of Southport wishes to acknowledge and express appreciation to Mr. Wayne Strickland for his dedicated service to the citizens of Southport as building inspector. Whereas Mr. Strickland has served the city of Southport for almost 26 years, from January 30th, 1995 to December 28th, 2020. Whereas he and his wife Mary have been residents of Southport since 1967. Whereas Mr. Strickland has worked tirelessly through many transition, disasters, and other circumstances in the city without discouragement or frustration. And whereas Mr. Strickland was vital in his contribution to the creation of a museum that shares the history of Southport and maritime history of the Lower Cape Fear region. And whereas his wisdom and knowledge of the city of Southport will be greatly missed. And whereas Mr. Strickland has earned the admiration and respect of his family, friends, peers, neighbors, politicians, civic leaders, and area residents. And now, therefore, I, Joseph P. Hayden, and the Board of Aldermen, on behalf of the city of Southport, present Mr. Wayne Strickland with the key to the city with deep appreciation and gratitude for the gifts of time, ability, and commitment in carrying out the duties of the building inspector, and extend heartfelt wishes and success in his future endeavors. Adopted this 10th day of December 2020, Joseph P. Hayden, Mayor. God bless you. Thank you. And let's do a right up here. Here we go. Right here.
just like to take a minute to thank you all for this and just say a few words. A few years ago, I was counting up how many mayors, city managers, and aldermen I had been through, planning board members, and ran out of fingers and toes, so I kind of stopped. But it has been a marvelous time. I was hoping to just kind of slip out the door and then slip back in when you guys weren't watching. But I know, for one thing, I'm leaving you guys with some really good people. Tanya, Shannon, Tori Delvey, John Micheletto, and Thomas Lloyd are all excellent, and it's the best crew that I've had and to work with, and I'm leaving Southport in very good hands, and hope to be back for part-time at a later date too. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Strickland. I think you will hold the record on mayors, city managers, planning board members, and board of adjustment members. Absolutely. So thank you, and we look forward to continuing to have your expertise and wisdom to help with the city. So thank you. Next will be the ethics statement. If any members know of any conflict of interest or the appearance of a conflict of interest with respect to matters on the agenda, please so state so at this time. Any conflicts? All right, thank you. Next item is the consent agenda. This includes the approval of the November 12th, 2020 regular meeting minutes. You've reviewed them. Any changes? If not, I will entertain a motion.
So moved.
Thank you, Alderman Allen, and a second by Alderman Sharkey. Any discussion? Okay. All in favor? Motion carried. Thank you. Item 1 on the agenda, the public hearing. I declare the public hearing open at this time concerning the amendment of the 2014 Campbell Land Use Plan. This revision has been a process like that of the UDO revision and has been in the works for many months. So I want to thank everyone who participated in that, including, of course, City Planner, Thomas Lloyd, the Planning Board, Madam Chairman Hayden, all the Planning Board members, the Planning Board liaisons, our Aldermen Mosteller and Allen, Wes McLeod from the Council of Government. So I want to thank them, and it's been a good learning experience for all of us. So, Mr. City Planner, Thomas Lloyd. Now, that's a great introduction for you.
All right.
Ship at sea.
So yeah, as the mayor said, I actually looked into when we first started working on the amendments of this Campbell Land Use Plan. And we first started this process in August of 2018. So it's been in the works for a while, so it's good that we're finally getting to the end of it. This draft plan was unanimously recommended for approval by the city's planning board. And then we've had several workshops since then with the Board of Aldermen. So prior to adopting this, we must hold a public hearing to solicit any comments and feedback from the public. If there are any additional comments or questions that come up during the hearing, we can incorporate that into the draft plan. And I believe that some of the aldermen have already sent some comments and questions, so we can address those. But attached is a draft adoption resolution, and once this is adopted, the plan amendment will then be sent to the Division of Coastal Management for their certification. And I'm going to introduce Wes McLeod with the Cape Fear Council of Governments in case he has any other comments.
Thank you, Thomas, Mayor, Board. Sorry, I didn't know I was going to get introduced prior to the opening the hearing, but I don't have anything further to add. I'll wait till after the hearing's over, and perhaps we can discuss comments at that time. Thank you all.
Anyone from the public that would like to speak? Okay, Mr. Rose, thank you.
Yes, I am Robin Rose, 606 West Street, Southport, Marina. I was not actually here to speak on the county land use plan tonight. I'm here to speak about the Waterline Loop, but in reviewing the agenda, we at Southport Marina on Tuesday, I believe it was, we discovered, as we looked at the map, we discovered that there was an overlay of open space on the sewer plant. And understanding our differences with the city on open space, we thought we needed to talk about it. I'm sure you people around the table have gotten packages already. And that piece of property was in the business district before, during, and after we purchased that property. I'm not here to find out what happened, how did that get overlaid with open space. All we're asking for tonight is for you guys to put it back to business district so we can continue our development as planned. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Rose. That we certainly will have that discussion in terms of the future land use map has listed as open space an area that is zoned business district on our zoning map. And so it really should coincide with our zoning map. And we will certainly have that discussion with the board. Is there anyone else that would like to speak concerning the CAMA land use plan? Okay, we're good. What we can do, we'll go out of the public hearing, and then I'll turn it over to the board to see how they would like to proceed. I'll start with Mayor Pro Tem.
Wes, you can hear whatever. I think that got picked up from the 2014 future land use map. That's why that probably was zoned open space on the new one. That's all I can think of. But the one thing I wanted to ask Wes was, in the purchase of that property, the sale to the marina, part of that agreement had dedicated public easement, the 10-foot public easement along the property line against the adjacent property owner, plus a 0.11 acre of which overlaps that, but also is other land. And what I would like to know is, since that is a dedicated public for city easement, could that remain with open space designation? Would that be appropriate? Because that's how we do our parks, and that's what it's dedicated for, is parkland.
Sure. Yes, ma'am. So with it being designated light commercial in its entirety, it would not necessarily preclude the city from having open space in there. But if it's the pleasure of the board for that particular area to remain as open space, that's certainly possible. It's sort of just up to you guys on the policy of it. But I just want to make sure that there's nothing that would be inherently in conflict. You can have parks and open space in commercial areas, for example. It's a less restrictive type of use.
But that wouldn't inhibit the marina business use of the land.
No.
That's
No.
Because of mass, I'm not sure I heard correctly. If we kept it designated as open space, this would not inhibit the marina's ability to use the rest of it?
So,
correct?
Within the portion, depending on what's pulled, the only time this plan comes into place is for issuance of a CAMA major permit. Otherwise, the plan is reviewed for you guys for consistency's sake. You don't have to act consistent with it on any sort of zoning changes, things of that nature. But if there's a CAMA major permit and it's requested in a place that, for example, in your plan that's designated in open space, and the permit request is inconsistent with that, a Division of Coastal Management would be in line to deny that permit. So, depending on what the board does, either that entire parcel is like commercial, the business can operate as is or as planned, what have you. I don't know the history of major permits on that particular parcel, but if you took out the piece that in fact was the easement, that would preclude future business activity on that particular. I haven't seen this stretch of area, but it seems like a small area. It would preclude the activity within that portion of the tract.
It's actually the area, I believe, that is supposed to be designated as an access to the creek for the public to get down west-west and continue on down to the creek with kayaks or for viewing the sunset or birds or whatever. Is that correct? Is my memory right on that?
I think it was hopefully because the marina in the deal, there's $50,000 that's supposed to go toward us creating some up to $50,000, 50% of it up to $50,000. So it was originally thought of, I think Laura probably has as much insight as anybody about thinking that was going to be a pathway and maybe a kayak launch and then do some sort of bird observation space on that other parcel. Was that sort of what the
Yes, if I could speak. Yeah, I think that's the vision, is a boardwalk or something that would allow us to be able to access the creek for water sports or just bird watching, maybe something else. There's also going to be parking adjacent to that, area that's part of the business for the marina. Well, the marina's business. It's still, I think, land that'll be utilized for both, visitors to the kayak launch and visitors to the marina for their service. The one thing that I'm hesitant to do as far as asking that this be designated green space now is that while the marina has made a commitment to provide the $50,000 to help us build it, we have to come up with the other money, and we don't know if that'll always happen. So if we take action today to make this little tip open space instead of, business district, which is their property, then we are, limiting them as a property owner, and I don't know if that's fair. I don't think I would do that to any other property owner,
But
because we don't know for sure that we are going to build it.
they've already given us an easement.
So
They've already
that's-
limited it themselves by giving us an easement.
I'm just saying that this is it's a proposal. There's nothing in concrete that it means it's going to happen. So is it right to do that? I'm just telling you my opinion. And
Yeah.
I don't know that I would impose that on any other property owner, because I have a vision that we want to have a kayak launch, that I would expect them to agree to an open space zoning on private property that they rightfully bought as business.
Yeah.
That's all. It's just, I'm just saying that.
Yeah, I don't think we'll lose the kayak launch or any of that with respect to that land or the marina. And I think, according to our attorney, a way to reconcile this is just to adopt the resolution approving the City of Southport Land Use Plan update and amendment with the modification that tax parcel 237LF021 be identified on said update as business district instead of open space. And I think that would, correct the situation. I don't think it would take away the ability of the city to have a kayak launch and that type thing. I'll listen to the board for their comment in that regard.
Concern was creating an overlay that would prevent us from doing something in the future. We have a goal of a kayak launch, but if there was any kind of a modification 5 years from now, would we be shooting ourselves in the foot by creating this overlay on that easement? So I would rather stay away from that so that we could preserve our rights on that location as possible.
And in my case, I don't understand why we would not want to keep this or designate this as open space if it is the easement that is our right to use. Why not keep it designated now as open space?
I'd say because we haven't taken the action to put the kayak launch in yet. What if we default on that? And therefore now we're binding the property owner to that zoning. Because, we 5 years from now, we just haven't made that a priority as far as funding or something. And is that fair? If we establish the kayak launch, I would think maybe then at that point in time, you could maybe rezone it as open space, because you've actually created that situation where it's for the use of Southport. It'd be open space. But I wouldn't want to, I think it's premature. And I think it's in bad taste. Because if this was intentionally done, that's really questionable. But I'm being told it was a mistake from the 2014 map. So I hope
I assume it was never
that's the
discussed.
It
case.
turned out well, and you're projecting that maybe if 5 years from now, we haven't come up with the money and haven't done the launch and so forth. I'm not following your reasoning. So then what? If it's designated as light commercial, then the owner could use it, the marina could use it for commercial purposes if we haven't jumped on it and done what
The marina
we
can't use
intend.
it for commercial purposes because they've granted us an easement on it. They've effectively given us the land by granting us an easement. To
Yeah.
come back and say that we're taking something from them is patently absurd. They voluntarily gave us an easement, which voluntarily gave away their development rights to that property. Let's be real clear about that.
This is
And what is the advantage to the marina to have this zoned back to light commercial? What is the disadvantage to the marina to have this as open space?
Let's also be clear, we're not talking about zoning. We're interchanging zoning and overlay on the CAMO long use plan.
Yeah.
We need to be real careful about our nomenclature.
Right.
We're not obligated to put this dock in, are we? I mean, so it doesn't matter if it's 5 years or 6 years or 7 years. If it's our right of way, it's our right of way. So whether it's business or open space, it really don't make a difference.
I think the concern that's been expressed by the property owner is that CAMA, in the way that they do their process, if there was a reason for them to request a major permit, that it could be in conflict because of the land use designation as open space, and that a permit that they request related to part of that land could be denied.
But
And
that
that's
is
their
acceptable
concern.
in open space.
It could impact other parts of the land that they own.
I don't know, I'm not following, I guess.
This is really the future land use map. Part of the negotiations of the sale of the land was this easement to be used for city purposes. So I think the idea that we don't have a plan of exactly when we're building it is not really cogent. And also the other thing to remember about this future land use map is it's about the future land use. It's not about zoning and open space. I understand that future map will affect, if we don't fix it for the marina on that land business-wise, that's a problem. But I also think that to be consistent within this future land use map, if you'll look at all of our other parks and recreation parcels, they're all indicated as open space. And this is not, keep in mind, this is not open space zoning. This is designated open space for future land use planning. That's not the same thing. So, but to my knowledge, it was just an error. This was never discussed within any discussion of the committee, the planning board committee that I was present, that I can recall, Thomas. I think it just got picked up from the old CAMA land use plan, future land use plan. So that's why I think it's important to be consistent. And I don't think, and Wes, you should answer this, because if it's wrong, if us designating our little portion is somehow negative to the business use adjacent, I mean, the marina's zone business is adjacent to open space, and they get to have their use, so I don't know how they were in conflict.
I don't know specifically without seeing the location of this easement and if it would somehow impact the use of their facility, and if a permit was pulled that somehow needed to utilize that portion of that easement in some form or fashion. Not to say that they're going to be fully operating on that easement. I don't know. I'm not an attorney, so I don't know the specifics of that easement agreement either. I don't know if there's some type of shared use that the marina is also privy to. So, it's kind of a loaded question, and that I don't necessarily feel comfortable, saying one way or the other. And I hope that's okay to say, but I wasn't anticipating the question.
I heard you say something that stuck in my mind. If you're applying for a CAMA use permit and we create this overlay, and we create it, and then later on we were to apply for a CAMA use on that location, we would be subject to it as well.
Yes, sir, that's correct. Now, I mean, you could obviously amend the plan based on whatever you decided to do. You'd have to go through this similar process. But yes, sir, that's correct. It's only for a CAMA major permit, though. There's limited instances in which that's going to come into play. But yes, sir, that's correct.
Okay, and that's why I would stay away from it, is the unknown there.
Did the marina apply for a CAMA major land use permit for their most recent building that they're constructing?
I believe, sir, that they did. I believe that Division of Coastal Management, in fact, struggled with determining the consistency review of issuing that permit, in large part due to many of the things that we have sought to correct. The fact that your existing plan is, says in some places one thing, in other places another thing. So, no matter how the outcome, the plan is now, my hope is that it is more clear for folks in consistency reviews in the future.
That's my question. The 2014 long-range land use plan shows the former wastewater treatment plant as open space, yet the marina was apparently able to obtain a CAMA major permit for the construction of their new boat storage facility.
That's correct, but now if that same consistency review was to take place, I believe that the Division of Coastal Management would have denied that permit if you adopt the language as is, and if this were to proceed. There's some policy statements in there that perhaps in your existing plan, the 2014 plan, that led to the initial issuance of that permit. So
I think everybody's got in front of them this map. I would, if you look at it, you can see the parking area on the upper left-hand corner. That's parking for the new boat storage facility. I don't know how we're going to do this. I don't know how you can do on a map this scale. I guess there's a bigger one. I don't know how detailed we can do it. My recommendation would be that we put in the light commercial as the future land use plan for the area that entails the boat storage facility and associated parking lot that goes around there, and the rest of the land, which is marsh and goes down to the water and includes our easement, would be designated as open space. Does that make sense to y'all?
yes, sir, and that's just the pleasure of the board. We can map it as however you guys request.
Actually, on that map, you can see where the easement is. The easement, they've got it labeled on here. It is, of course, it's along that property line at the top there, 10 feet easement, 10-foot easement. And then if you look at the last little wedge drawing, it says, it's really tiny writing, but it says easement. It's that little wedge. That's where the platform, the .11 is. So that's, well away from all of them, And in the future, this can be amended but it just seems to be consistent to do just the easements as that, at least.
Do we make a motion for this, or how does this proceed?
In theory, yes. Whether, and if you're following this at home, I applaud you. Again, the future land use map has that parcel of land as open space. And on the zoning map, and I appreciate Alderman Allen making the distinction that it is zone business district. And as Mr. McLeod has said, if a major, say, CAMA major permit was issued with the adoption of the CAMA land use plan as is, then there may be a potential for it to be denied. Is that correct?
Yes, sir. That's correct.
As a summary. So, one option per the city attorney is to adopt the resolution approving the City of Southport land use plan update and amendment with the modification that tax parcel, the piece of land that we're talking about, 237L5021, be identified on said update as business district instead of open space. Is that how you understand it, Mr. McLeod?
And Mr. Mayor, that should actually be light commercial, not business district.
Okay.
But so if there is a motion made, just make sure that
light
it
commercial.
would be that motion with light commercial.
He did leave that blank, so I appreciate that. I didn't know exactly
sir.
what was to fill in there.
And if I may, I know that there was a couple of other comments that were submitted that were clerical, grammatical items. I just want to make sure that the board is aware of that. Alderman Sharkey, those were some of your comments. I don't know if they need to be addressed. I just want, before you guys proceed with making a motion and potentially adopting this, I wanted to bring that to the board.
Sure, there's no further discussion. I want to make sure all the aldermen have said what they'd like to say. Do they have any further questions for Mr. McLeod or Mr. Lloyd?
Y'all were able to make like cleanup grammar, typo kinds of things afterwards. That's not something we need to comment on here, is it? If it doesn't change the substance. You know, we kind of gave you a blanket. You sort of went away with it.
Yes, ma'am. These are in that guise, but I would be more comfortable with the board formally, making a motion to approve them as well. They are not, I feel comfortable changing something that is spelled wrong or something that's not plural, what have you. These are a couple wording changes, nothing of substance, but I would feel more comfortable with the board explicitly approving them. But thank you for the question.
Why don't you present them?
Well, do we want to deal with the map situation, and then I can give you the language that I submitted to Wes? And it's 4 items. 2 of them are kind of grammatical. One of them is talking about sewer and water extension. So.
I'd like to make a motion. Did you want to have one, or? Well, I don't have the give me the parcel number, please, Mayor.
It's tax parcel number 237F021.
F021. So I'd like to make a motion that for the CAMA long-range land use plan in regards to parcel 237F021, that we designate that portion as shown on this overall site plan, Southport Marina dry stacks, that's shown as a parking area. And if it's on there, the building, their dry stack building, be designated as light commercial, and the remainder of that parcel will be designated as open space.
Okay, we have a motion by Alderman Allen and a second by Madam Alderman Lowe Davis. And again, I apologize, Mr. Allen, it's 237L F021. I apologize.
Sorry,
Left out the L.
237LF021.
LF021, yes, thank you. All right, any further discussion? We have a motion and a second.
It's not exactly my motion, but I'll go with it. But I'm just concerned about the future use of that little parcel. But I wouldn't hold it up I wouldn't hold up anything because of it. It's just wasn't exactly what I wanted, but I'll go with it.
Okay. All right, thank you, Mr. Spencer. Any further discussion? Okay. All in favor? Any opposed? Okay, 5-1, motion carried. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. McLeod, and thank you, Mr. Lloyd, for this.
I submitted some comments when I read through the packet Thomas had shared with us. So let's see my copy. So page 10, 121 in the document page, policy 3.7 talks about defined service area for water and sewer. And because of our current agreement with Brunswick County, we don't have language that says defined service area. So I suggested that we change the language in the document to say support extension of water and sewer outside corporate limits in accordance with the West Brunswick Regional Wastewater Service System Regional Participant Agreement dated November 2nd, 2020. So that's what I'm saying, is that take out language that didn't apply anymore. Such extensions of service beyond corporate limits are subject to annexation, is how I finished that. So that was the one probably most substantial. The other ones were page 16, which was page 127 in the document, bullets, number 8, sentence structure on bullet number 8, I recommended a change to manage causes and sources of pollution to protect all waters while supporting their use in reasonable economic growth. Page 24, 135 in the document, it needs to be that we have 4 primary objectives instead of 3. And number 3 was to provide a land use form. I considered the word form For land use as odd, didn't make sense to me, so I suggest model, land use model. And then the last one was a more or less just a cleanup because open space was still listed for residential land use. So we need to take open space out for residential land use. Is that, we don't allow anything on open space, I thought.
If my understanding on 144 is that was just in reference to the second sentence stating these categories include, and that just was not picked up when we put open space in its own category. Is that the change? The second sentence at the bottom of the. Okay.
Yes, sir, that's it.
Yep.
Yes, sir.
So
Yes.
that does not impact it, any sort of designation of
No.
uses or anything to that effect. It's just clarifying that that's
Yes,
no
sir.
longer relevant.
Yes, sir.
If all those changes are agreeable, ultimately, you would make a motion to adopt that resolution subject to the amended map and the changes provided by Alderman Sharkey, and that we would incorporate those changes in the final plan.
Okay, I'll entertain a motion.
Moved.
Okay.
Second.
So the motion is that we amend the future CAMA land use map, and also that we accept the changes that Alderman Sharkey has recommended to be included in the CAMA land use plan. Is that correct?
Almost. You're adopting the resolution subject to the amended map and the changes provided by Alderman Sharkey. The resolution actually adopts the plan, but you just want to make sure that you're including in that resolution the amended future land use map and the Alderman Sharkey's comments. So the motion would be to adopt the resolution subject to amended map and Alderman Sharkey's comments.
I'll make the motion. So we have a resolution in our package. It's a resolution of the Board of Aldermen, City of Southport, adopting the City of Southport land use plan update and amendment. So I'd like to recommend that we adopt this resolution pending the correction to the map as the vote was previous to this, and the corrections that I suggested, the four corrections that I suggested.
Is there a second? Mr. Spencer, second. Any further discussion? Okay. All in favor? Any opposed? Motion carried.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you, Wes. Thanks for all your help.
The public hearing is over, but Mr. Rose, do you have a question or?
I'm a little confused myself after all that. Want to make sure I understand. So you took our piece of property. Is the open space going to be taken over off that parcel of land in its entirety?
My understanding is now on the future land use map, it is now considered or adopted as light commercial. Is that correct, Board? Is that what you understand as well?
It's basically the parcel's split. Some of it's going to be designated light commercial, some's going to be designated as open space.
So right now, you've taken that parcel and you've put open space on my parcel. Just asking. I just need to know. Is that what's happened?
On the future land use plan, but on the part that you are concerned about, it is considered light commercial. That's my understanding. And that on the zoning map is still the same business district, correct? Yes.
Nothing to do with
No
the
change
zoning
there.
map.
So anyway, correct me if I'm wrong.
So there's no open
Board.
space on the entire parcel?
No, that is, there's light commercial on his tax, on that tax parcel.
Both open space and light commercial.
So that's the problem. You've taken our piece of property, all of it, and placed open space on that piece of property.
Not
correct?
all of it,
I didn't say all of it. I'm sorry, any portion of it.
right. But it's a portion that can't be built on. It's wetlands and water.
So you did take that property and put open space on it, where it didn't have open space before.
No, before it was.
Before,
open
the entire
space.
parcel was
Future.
designated as open space, and what we did is we made part of it light commercial and left part of it as open space.
So when you go for a major, CAMA permit, that you would have a better chance of not being denied, is that correct? By changing this future land use map, is that correct, Mr. McLeod? And Thomas? Lloyd?
Oh, man. Mr. Mayor, so I believe the question was about a CAMA major permit. As stated prior, I don't know the answer. Obviously in the light commercial segment of that parcel, the consistency review would be, acceptable. But as stated prior, I don't know where the easement is in relation to potential any of the business operation that would take place. And so, as I said, I'm not prepared to answer that question. I don't know the terms of the easement agreement, things of that nature. So it would be a case by case, decision, and certainly it would depend on what actually the CAMA major permit was for. Unfortunately, it's not kind of a yes or no question.
But is there a better potential for it to be approved as listed on that future land use map, light commercial, as opposed to the whole property being listed open space?
Yes, sir. Most certainly. Yes, sir.
That's the point I was trying to make with Mr. Rose.
I don't have any problem with the town taking the easement that was given to them in the deed and making that open space. But for the town to come in and take whatever other area they think is whatever and drop open space on it is not fair. You just can't drop open space on somebody's property like that. I mean, you can, and it looks like you're doing it. But I don't mind y'all taking your easement. I mean, what we gave you the easement for, if y'all want to put that open space, that's fine. That's yours to do what you want to with it. And we're going to help contribute to getting that built for you. But to come and drop open space on what you may consider to be area that's not usable, I don't think it's fair. I mean, one day there could be a boardwalk out there with a platform, which is an overview, just like you got right now on the east side of the Marina. So I'm not, if that's what you choose to do, that's fine, but I don't think it's fair.
I don't look at it as dropping in open space on the future land use map. It was already there. What we did, we inserted light commercial. Is that correct, board, or am I misunderstanding? That's my understanding. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Mr.
You've
Lloyd?
added
Is that-
light commercial to that parcel, except for where the easement is. The easement will be open space.
Yeah,
The rest of it is light commercial. That was the vote.
Yes, that's the point I was trying to make.
That's the vote, sir.
Yeah.
That was the motion and the vote. So
Yeah.
it should be modified. The map should be modified to reflect that.
Understand.
Okay.
I'm just saying in the future, if we were to go try to do a boardwalk platform where you could view the waterway and the marsh, like you guys have on the east side, if that's open space, we'd like to get turned down to do that.
Well,
So that's the point I was trying to make. There's only certain things you can do. You definitely, whatever you can't do, I know how the open space rules, we're well aware of that. So, you understand?
Yes, but as long as you understand that what we did was drop in light commercial. We did not.
I got
It was
you.
already open space. And as Mr. McLeod said, it's a case-by-case basis, correct, regardless? Right. So you can certainly propose. It doesn't inhibit you from proposing any type of permit.
Just
at
wasn't in
all.
favor of it. I'm just telling you, I wasn't in favor of it, and I didn't think it was fair. That's all.
All right. Well, thank you. Yes, sir. All right. Okay. If the board would like, we will move on to item 2. This is the voluntary contiguous annexation petition at 1208 North Caswell Avenue. City Planner, Mr. Lloyd, thank you.
All right, so we've already discussed this annexation petition. At last month's meeting, the board recognized the receipt of the petition and adopted a resolution requesting that the clerk verify the sufficiency. That has been done, so now the next step is to adopt a resolution setting a public hearing for the January 14th, 2020 meeting.
All right. Any questions for Mr. Lloyd?
Yes, I just have a question. Reading the application, Thomas, I realize that these folks are also going to seek a rezoning.
Mm-hmm.
Now, do they know that they don't, I mean, we're not deciding the rezoning first. Is that an obstacle for them as far as pursuing?
The rezoning will be at next month's meeting as well.
So if we go ahead and move to have the public hearing scheduled, then that's okay with their, I know there was another example where they wanted to know that they had the rezoning first before they asked for annexation.
Yeah, and I think that's the way we would arrange it at next month's meeting, because there will be a public hearing for that rezoning at next month's meeting as well, assuming that the planning board adopts a statement of consistency or inconsistency at next week's meeting.
Okay, I just didn't want to put them in a bind if they wanted something first before the annexation.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Thank you. I'll entertain a motion.
Move to approve?
Well, it'd be
that
a
what we're
motion to adopt the resolution to
Yeah.
fix the date for
Right.
January 14th, 2020.
So move.
Okay. Mayor Pro Tem, and then second by Alderman Allen. Any further discussion? Okay. All in favor? Any opposed? Great. Motion carried. Thank you, Mr. Lloyd. Item 3, and this is a wonderful topic. Discussion of land acquisition for a nature park, looking at our environment in our city and how we can preserve it, and in particular using land that we have to possibly sell to obtain land that we don't have. So Alderman Sharkey.
Thank you, Mayor. So if you look at the sheet, I have an action page asking why should we take action to convert 106 acres of undeveloped woods and wetlands on Ferry Road into a nature park. The reasons are listed. Southport's legacy is the natural coastal environment. That's a lot of what sets us apart. That's a big reason why we love this community, is the natural environment that we have and we enjoy. This is the last large tract of land that's up for sale that I'm aware of, and it has an extremely high biological wildlife habitat value. And this information is provided to us. It was provided by Casey Cook in her comments on our CAMA land use plan. There was maps included in there, and if you look at the maps on the flip side past that bullet page, you'll see 3. First, there's a pinkish colored one, and that designates what are natural heritage areas in Southport. The land of Ferry Road that I'm interested in us purchasing is the pink portion there on the right-hand side of the page. So it's land that goes from the circle outside of Harbor Oaks to the Fort Fisher Ferry. So the next page, I don't know if you see the green or the blue, there's a blue page that designates wetlands in our area. and their values is whether they're exceptional or significant. The wetlands in that Ferry Road piece are exceptional. So as a good steward of the community, we should take all the actions we can to preserve our wetlands. And in fact, the CAMA land use plan that we just adopted states that we will take action to protect those wetlands. The last page, hopefully, that you're looking at is the one that's green, mostly green. The more green you have, the higher your biological and wildlife diversity is, the value of the land as far as habitat for wildlife. This piece of land there designated in the right-hand corner of the map is very, very green. So this is land that, before it gets developed, has a lot of value. And it has value to us. It can help us with storm resiliency. It can help us with our property values by staying green instead of being developed. If we choose not to allow it to become developed, we will be able to save money on infrastructure that would be needed for sewer. We would not also the amount of gallonage that we're permitted under our sewer agreement with Brunswick County. How do we do this? Well, we own some land that was designated for a wastewater treatment plant that now is not needed by us because we have our agreement. Wildlife Resources is extremely interested in the 440 acres on Bethel Road. It is also a very premium, high value, biologically valuable piece of land. There's one particular endangered species that's very cute called the gopher toad. There's only 7 sites left that those toads live on that they know of, and this is one that they do not have under their management, and they would dearly love to have it under their management. There's also another wide assortment of plants and other animals and stuff that's associated with that land. So this is my proposal. We approach Wildlife Resources about purchasing the land, the 440 acres that we do not need. That way it is taken into conservation. It is not being sold to a developer. It is the best use for that land for the good of the community, really. They in turn would pay us. We take that money and we reinvest it in land on Ferry Road. And to achieve that purchase, we would most likely also need to qualify for some grants. Because it's not a one-for-one deal. The land here, because it's zoned multifamily development, it's zoned commercial, is right now has a higher market value. But Casey Cook has said that she can help with this process, and she would be happy to answer any questions. But she seemed very enthused when I asked her if the state was interested in the land. That's how this conversation started, is I just asked if they might be interested in the 440 acres. And from there, she said yes. A very enthusiastic yes.
Would all of that 440 acres be sold, or will some of it be kept?
I don't know that we need to keep it, other than we need land for public works to have a place for debris
Storage
removal.
and stuff.
And the fire department would like to do training on some of that land, I think, have a little a simulator kind of site. Casey suggested that there could be an agreement where an easement could be provided for whatever amount of land that we want, that we may, not have to hold it as ownership, that the state might still want to hold it, but they would probably provide an easement for 10 or 15 acres, if that's our choosing. Or we could separate it out and not sell all of it.
Yeah, I think we need some land for storage.
Mm-hmm.
Certainly a storage building. We are dying need of that.
Well, and the hurricane debris staging area, we need warehouse. Eventually, we've got to think growth, because the public works on House Street, that's not the highest and best use of property on House Street long term.
Right.
So,
No.
And they need to grow.
Yeah,
So-
we need space out there, and
Yeah,
I
yeah, yeah.
explained that to her, that we would need, I don't know how many acres, but we would
Right.
want some of it. She just she provided options.
Right.
It wasn't, you had to do it one way or the other. There was options.
Sure. And we need to identify, I know for their purposes, they don't really care about the blast area conversation about being able to inhabit and whatnot. We need to identify what restrictions are on what portion of the parcel, so we'll know, if maybe staff can help us with that, so we'll know what could actually, you know, because part of it you couldn't put certain things on and inhabit or do whatever. So we need to establish what that portion is too. So I think, but
Okay.
yeah.
This is a great concept, and I commend you, Laura, for bringing this forward, and I think we definitely should run with it.
I think it's a great concept too, but I also think that we should take it as a two-step process. Sell the property, the 400, let's say, just say round number, 400 acres, and then really look at what is our priority for the use of that money. As wonderful as the idea of having this 106 undeveloped acres preserved for wildlife, and just as a general nature preserve, there may be other things that we need to look at spending on first. So I would recommend that we consider this as a two-step. Let's start with going forward with the sale of the property, and then look at what we're going to do with it. The property, the 106 undeveloped acres, has been undeveloped for a long time, has been on the market for a long time, has not been sold. I believe Alderman Spencer could maybe fill us in a little further on that if you choose to. It doesn't appear to be in imminent danger of being developed. I don't even think it's on the market right now.
It is on the market, and it's been
It
on
is?
the market for 3 or 4 years. It is a prime piece of real estate. And when you had the outcry of giving away 2 acres of a wastewater treatment plant and being able to acquire 106 acres, I think that's a major accomplishment. We have slight differences of opinion about what to do with the property, but acquiring it for the city would be a strong move. And when we were selling the wastewater treatment plant, there were a lot of people who were ready to donate money to preserve waterfront property.
Correct.
And I'm wondering where their pocketbooks are now.
I didn't hear that last.
I'm wondering where their pocketbooks are now that we've got the opportunity to get 106 acres of,
let's
of
find
waterfront.
out.
That's right. So I think that the best move we can make is to get the 440 acres or whatever it is, get an appraisal on it, so we can get to the agency that she's referring to and see if we can make a deal. I think that's what they need, is to know what the value would be. And the ferry road would be a tremendous asset for Southport.
They asking for that 106 acres.
I think it's about 3.5 million, 3.3. That's no, I shouldn't even quote that. I'll get in trouble with it. but I'm thinking 3.5. I really see that as something of maybe a public-private partnership if we can't get all the money. But
Was any money, Laura, was any money discussed on that 440 acres?
We would need an appraisal, but Ms. Cook assured me that the Wildlife Resources Commission pays market value. So the first step would be an appraisal to find out
Yeah.
exactly what it is. I mean, I know what the taxable, amount is right now. As far as what Brunswick County values it at, it's a little over $1 million. But if you put it on the market, that certainly could be different, because some of it could be developed potentially and not be in conflict with the blast zone and stuff, but not all of it can be developed. But it is such a valuable piece of land as far as habitat. And, this really came to home when I went to that 2040 vision survey and meeting, is that what do we want Southport to look like in 2040? And if Right now, we go with the way the zoning map is. It'll have some buildings on it. You won't be able to go back, you know, after it gets developed and take it away. I think, you know, the value of green space to our citizens, we don't always understand or appreciate. But, you know, think about Greenfield Lake in Wilmington, Central Park in New York City, even Youngstown, Ohio, which isn't known for being a great place, has a wonderful park called Mill Creek Park, and it's a refuge for people. And, you know, I don't know how often you think about it, but for every, you know, this is a quote from the state. For every dollar invested in land conservation, there's an estimated $4 in return in economic value from natural resource goods and services alone, without considering other economic benefits. You give people a reason to come to town and ride their bicycle or walk through that nice park, they're gonna go and have a meal somewhere, or they might spend some time lingering and shopping and stuff like that. It'll help our central business district. It wouldn't be a detriment. And we wouldn't also be, you know, moving businesses out from our central business district. We could keep it consolidated.
Are you,
Corridor.
are you envisioning that it would not be just left in its current state, that it would be turned into a pedestrian-friendly, visitor-friendly area?
My recommendation would be paths. Boardwalk-type paths like you have in Belleville along the marsh,
Yeah.
so that you could look at over the water and see the birds and whatever. Inwood paths amongst the trees and stuff, but not intensive development like you associate with recreation parks. I would keep it mostly green, and that would also help with, like I said, storm protection and stuff like that. The more trees and everything we leave on there, we wouldn't incur erosion, which is important for water quality, you know, and for the marshland and everything there. When you go across the river on Fort Fisher Ferry, you go right into a park area. You don't go right into a big commercial area. And it would be, I think, really beneficial for us to have that kind of gateway, you know, into Southport too. Because on one side of the street, it's a lot of parking lot. On this side of the street of Ferry Road, it could be a nice park.
Just to correct myself, it's 3.25. I was a little over, as a normal, good realtor would be. It would give us an identity as people cross from the ferry, the first appearance of Southport, and sort of make a tourist situation on both sides. And I think that there would also be the ability to give some incentive to the owners for the sale in terms of some kind of credit here and there. So it sounds like a big number when it comes to come to grants, and maybe the hypothetical $1 million on the sale, matching it with $1 million with grants, it's not that far off.
So Laura, the outcome tonight is for us to order an appraisal, ask for an appraisal, and contact Casey Cook. Okay.
Motion is tonight to direct the city manager to, you know, arrange an appraisal of the land so we know what we should ask for, and contact Casey Cook and report back to us actually before the end of December if possible. So if we wanted to convene a special meeting to take action, because if we want to apply for the grants, the Clean Water Management Fund Act, it's already started for this year's cycle, and it would end in February. So we would need to, you know, put a package together on how we would want to try to accomplish some grants and everything to help pursue the purchase of the other land. Thomas reported in his monthly report that there's been 2 developers that have contacted him recently about that land, and it did have a contract on it last year, but it fell through. So if you look around, there's less and less land every day to build something on. It'll be built if we don't buy it. It's not gonna stay vacant forever.
But tonight, your motion is that we obtain an appraisal for the 440 acres or the 40 acres, whatever. I guess we need a survey first to figure out how much we want to keep and how much we want to offer for sale. And tonight, we don't make a commitment or enter into any kind of memorandum of understanding or a contract on the 106 acres. We got two different acreages that we're talking about. Selling the 440 and then later on trying to acquire the 106. Okay.
You said it correct earlier. We have to, it's two steps.
Yeah.
So first thing is find out what the value is of the land that we are interested in selling, so that we can work with wildlife resources if that's what we choose to do. But I think that's the right thing to do because of the type of land it is to offer it to them for purchase and see what can be negotiated between them. But allow the city manager to make those contacts and find out and report back to us. So just an appraisal on the 440 and contact Casey Cook to find out what the next step is and report back to us.
And could that also include just being seeing what portions of the land we might want to retain access to, whether it's easement or not selling? If he could
Identifying the
identify
amount
that.
of identifying acreage that we would want control of. That's all together in that motion. Does that make sense?
Uh-huh. I
For-
second it.
To help the public, because I don't think they have any of the stuff in front of them, we're talking about the 440 acres is off of Bethel Road and abuts, does it abut Sunny Point, actually?
yeah.
But it is, part of it is within the blast zone, which makes it unbuildable. And there are other aspects that make it unbuildable. So there's that. We own it. It might be hard to sell it to anybody other than the state for various reasons. And then looking at purchasing, using that money toward the purchase of 106 acres as you drive toward Deep Point Marina or the
Fort Fisher Ferry.
On your left is a lot of undeveloped acreage. And as Alderman Sharkey has pointed out, it's full of wildlife. It's a very valuable nature preserve in its present state, but it wouldn't stay like that if it gets developed. So those are the two areas of concern. Could you tell us, tell the public again who Casey Cook is? We've referenced her a few
Casey
times.
Cook is a wildlife biologist that works for Wildlife Resources Commission, and she's in charge of the program called the Green Growth Toolbox, which is for planners, elected officials, and others to attend to understand how you incorporate conservation principles in your land use. And so she focuses on that throughout the state for all kinds of communities.
Okay. Y'all understand? Okay. Thank you.
So I have a question. You're tasking me to have the land appraised. In that, you're also wanting to have a certain size parcel cut out of the land for future public works facility and maybe hurricane debris laydown yard. What sort of acreage are you talking about? And are y'all also authorizing me to have a survey done on that?
I'm pretty sure we already have a survey, if you look in the files. I would be shocked if we didn't have one. We probably have an appraisal that can just be updated.
Yeah, this was going to be
But-
the site of the new sewer plant if the city built its own sewer plant. So I think we must have a survey.
Well, no, I'm talking about a survey for the piece of parcel that we're going to cut out.
Hey,
You don't
15
think we need that?
No, we don't need a survey for that. We need an estimate of y'all, just a rough idea, what you think, 10, 20, 30, 40 acres, what do you think might be?
Okay.
Just a rough idea at this point.
Good, good.
I think
And
20
where it
acres.
would be outside of the blast zone, where we could utilize it. That's really identifying that parcel.
Okay. So outside of the blast zone. Okay.
May not necessarily have to be out of the blast zone.
Whatever the
We can put
restrictions.
hurricane debris in the blast zone, I think, can't we? As long as we don't, the only thing you can't do in the
Per with
blast
staff
zone is build a habitable
about
building.
how much space they need to facilitate, debris removal and all that. And then we learn whether it's allowed or not in that area. But staff, I think, can give you some guidance on the amount of area we should preserve for Southport use.
So we have a motion to have the 400 and some acres appraised. Look at how much acreage that we need to carve out to be used for public service department and debris removal space, and also for some possible training with the fire department. City manager will look into that, and also contact Casey Cook to see their interest and their support in this matter. And so that's been the motion, and I believe Alderman Sharkey, is that the motion as you see it?
Sir.
Okay, and Mayor Pro Tem was the second, okay? All in favor? Any opposed? Okay, motion carried. City Manager, thank you for looking into that for the board. Item 4 on the agenda, be rate committee recommendations to change the billing policy for solar customers. This is again Alderman Sharkey and Electrical Superintendent Ellie Pittenger. Welcome, Mr. Pittenger.
Good evening, Honorable Mayor, distinguished board, ladies and gentlemen. Alderman Sharkey.
Committee had been asked to investigate whether or not we could make some amendment to our solar panel metering for residential properties. And mostly customers were asking if we could be more reflective of what Brunswick Electric allows. And so we met, discussed those issues, and in turn we feel comfortable that allowing a second type of metering called net metering to be permitted in addition to dual metering, bilateral metering would be appropriate, and it wouldn't cause a burden on our customers to allow that for the solar panel use customers, but there would have to be some conditions to do it.
That is correct. In June of 2014, the board at that time agreed to initiate a solar program in the interest of being a more green community. And the technology and methodology, billing methodology that they were most comfortable with was the buy all, sell all rate, wherein 2 electric meters are utilized, one serving the residents from the utility, and the other, all of the solar generated energy from the customer owned panels would go towards the grid at a wholesale rate. And now we're looking at other being a little bit more green, and going more with serving the community and letting the people do solar and be more comfortable at it. Right now, buy all, sell all, we're paying a wholesale rate for all of the energy that the customer solar panel uses, and they don't get to take advantage of any of it. Under the net metering, 1 meter would be used. The customer solar panels, everything that they produce would go into the residence, and decreasing their use from the grid. And then there may be times when the rooftop, the solar panels are actually creating more energy than the customer needs to use, and the city would in effect buy back that excess energy. Only it would be it would be on par with what the customer pays retail. In other words, our basic residential rate is 12.5 cents per kilowatt hour. Any energy that came back from the customer's panels on the grid, we would credit them at 12.5 cents per kilowatt hour. It's a good adoption. The rate committee and staff feels good about it. There's just a couple of points we need to consider, is that the adoption should have the term rooftop solar in the verbiage, because the intention of this adoption does not include solar farming. You wouldn't want your neighbor to have a yard full of solar panels, all of a sudden, I don't think. And of course, this would not include any self-contained solar lighting like what we use on the pier. That's not really considered solar farming. Brunswick Electric, as you may know, does our operations and maintenance and our metering and billing, and they're fully capable and ready to bill our customers using this billing methodology at the rates that the city dictates, including any base rate increase, which for residential rooftop solar, it's usually about $5 extra for that kind of metering. Also, the net metered buyback rate should reflect any discount retail rate that the solar customer may already be on through participation in load management. If the customer is participating in load management and they're only paying 10.5 cents per kilowatt hour, we don't want to pay in the full 12.5 cents per kilowatt hour. We would pay in like we'd pay them back 10.5 cents per kilowatt hour. Applications and related documentation should be similar to Brunswick Electric, since they're doing our metering and billing, just to make things easier, and such as, but not limited to, they require a proof of insurance document from the customer is required and updated annually. And this is typically updated at the end of each fiscal year during the June true-up period with the solar customer, which is already part of the billing process, and it just kind of it's written in that billing methodology. That's about it. Are there any questions?
I have one. Clearly, this is intended to encourage more use of solar power, more customers to start using solar. How many solar customers do we have now? Do you have a ballpark or?
At this time, we have 5 solar customers total. If the ones that are really interested in net metering join the group, we would have a total of 7 so far. And this one of the things that one of the points that we did discuss during the RAE committee meetings is that we're not electric utility that's got 30,000 electric customers and 600 of them want to go on solar. We're 3,000 customers and we have 6 people doing it. So let's the general contention is let's give them what they want.
That's really a good start. It really is. It's exciting.
Well, and they're going to continue to pay the base meter rate, which is covers the infrastructure that they're connected to, and in addition, a $5. Did you already say that?
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct.
For the paperwork, so that keeps us whole essentially.
So I'd like to make a motion regarding this, sir. On behalf of this, the rate committee, I'd like to make the motion that Southport adopt as an option for solar rooftop customers to allow net metering as an approved billing method, and we would mirror the requirements that Brunswick Electric imposes on these type of customers with the proof of insurance, a $5 administration fee because their electric rate will have to be looked at individually depending on whether or not they utilize load management. And also we would like to expand the kilowatt generation by a customer up to 10 kilowatts from 5. It's currently limited at 5, and 10 would be more appropriate for actually providing enough electricity from solar for a household.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second, a rather
Wait a minute,
lengthy
I have-
motion.
Did that also include them paying the base rate, the monthly base rate?
It said reflective of Brunswick Electric's requirements, so yeah, they would,
Okay.
they would still continue to pay a base rate that is required for all electric
Okay.
customers.
Second.
A motion by Alderman Sharkey and a second by Mr. Spencer. Any further discussion on this amendment concerning rooftop solar panels, the Brunswick Electric requirement, the $5 fee, going up from 5 kilowatts to 10 kilowatts? I'm just paraphrasing. Okay, all in favor? Any opposed? Okay, motion carried. Thank you. And thank you, Mr. Pittenger. Nice job. Thank you. Thank you, Alderman Sharkey.
Thank you, Ellie.
Thank you very much. If I don't see you all before, have a very Merry Christmas.
Okay. Same to you.
Thank
Thank
you,
you. Okay. Agenda 5, discussion on tents, outdoor seating for businesses. This, of course, has to do with the pandemic and how businesses have tried to respond to the pandemic, putting tents up and seats outside, and they've got heaters and things like that. So we really need to have a further discussion on this and call on Code Enforcement Officer Kate Marshall. Welcome.
Thank you. Good evening. The businesses in our community continue to adapt to the ever-changing conditions due to the COVID-19 regulations to allow for social distancing, yet still serve their customers. With the weather growing colder over the last few weeks, several of those businesses have added outdoor dining and seating for their customers. These new additions have brought multiple different issues to the attention of city staff, from public safety and parking to noise. This becomes challenging for those departments dealing with complaints, at the same time allowing businesses to continue to serve their customers. Current ordinances are difficult to adapt to changing conditions. Direction is needed from the Board of Aldermen if the city is to allow businesses to utilize public rights-of-way to operate outdoor dining and seating on a temporary basis during the emergency declaration.
Thank you,
Yep.
Kate.
A nice a summary.
Summary.
And again, this is related to the pandemic. We're trying to keep our businesses open and our citizens safe as they're dining out and shopping and that type thing. And so I'll open it up to the board for your comments and see which direction we need to go. Mayor Pro Tem.
These are indeed extraordinary times, and we want to support our small businesses during the state of emergency that we find ourselves in, for sure. It would be helpful, I think, and Kate, stop me if I'm wrong, but I think it would be helpful if staff could create a permitting process to help our restaurants and bars and other small businesses, if needed, during these challenging times, and create outdoor seating spaces that are safe for their patrons and for the public at large. An application that includes input from our public safety officers and creates guidelines for the outdoor seating specific to the needs of the individual business location. And if Mike, our attorney, we could volunteer, who's not here tonight, could craft language to provide this unique permit process so that it can exist within Southport's COVID-19 state of emergency declaration with the mayor's consideration, of course. And then this could go immediately in effect. And since this is utilizing public rights of ways that they are not really designed for this intended purpose. So I think this is a way to help provide tools to help our businesses survive safely and protect the general public.
Mechanically, what is it that we need to do? Do we need a resolution establishing that this would be allowed as a special permit or an emergency permit?
Actually,
Right.
according to the attorney, one of his recommendations was that the ordinance amendment to 16-A that you have in front of you would need to be changed in writing. That's how he recommended doing it, and that, you know, you would have to craft the ordinance and then bring it back for a vote. You can't do it on the same night. So whether you do it that way, I mean, he said he could draft an amendment to 16A, which you have in front of you, or if you'd rather use some other mechanism, it's the board's pleasure.
I would be hesitant to put anything in ordinance without, I mean, in regular ordinance. This, if we put it in the declaration, the emergency declaration, then it is being in response to the COVID-19. You know, we have right-of-way issues and all of those that we still have yet to work on. So I would be hesitant to just instantly put something in an ordinance without a lot of discussion. We just went through 2 years of putting together the UDO update. So, but if Mike could craft language that you would consider, because I believe, can't you just sign it into the emergency order? So that's what I'm saying. They wouldn't
Yes.
even have to come back to us if we're all in agreement that that is a positive thing for us to do.
The effect of this would be that, say, one of the restaurants or any of the restaurants, say, that want to have the tables outside in the right-of-way during the time of the emergency, all they have to do would be then to apply for this emergency permit. And then when everything is over, God willing, COVID's gone, and we're not in a state of emergency, then that.
Correct. Yeah, this is a
Okay.
temporary
It would
measure
ex-
through the emergency order.
The
It would
permit would
expire.
extinguish.
Yeah, it would expire with the order.
Right. So you want to reformat that as a motion, and we
Okay,
can
I
repeat
guess
it?
so.
Or I can do it. I mean, I'd be glad to.
I guess we'll make a motion to have Mike craft language to update the emergency order declaration, state of emergency declaration, to include a permit process that Kate will create the application, a permit application process that will allow our businesses to apply to do right-of-way seating. I don't know. You do it.
So to access the right-of-way, to put up tents, that type thing, so they would have to do a permit process. So we'll have the city attorney draft that, just like he would draft another part of the emergency order
Right.
for other items
Right.
that he has helped me with. So we'll put it in there, and this is for the, so the businesses can access right-of-way and put tables and chairs and seating outside and that type thing, and the permit will be developed by the code enforcement officer and anyone else that she feels that needs to
And-
help her with that process.
Including safety personnel, or police chief,
Yes.
fire chief, those kind of people.
Correct. Okay. Is there a second? Okay,
Second.
Mr. Lombardi and Alderman Sharkey tied. So we have a second. Any further discussion on this important issue? None. Okay. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Okay, thank you. Motion carried. All right. Thank you, Ms. Marshall. Item 6, and this, again, is a great project, Memorandum of Understanding Review for Up Your Arts. We appreciate what Up Your Arts is doing to help resurrect the old City Hall, the old courthouse. And I'll turn it over to City Manager Hargrove.
Thank you, Mayor. Before you in your packet, you see our final copy of the Memorandum of Understanding with Up Your Arts. There were a few changes that Mike and I worked on to protect the city. Most importantly, there was an indemnity clause to protect the city from damages and that sort of thing. We also changed the auto renewal. We don't want an auto renewal on it. And also, we're not obligated past this agreement. We have sent this to the attorney and critical stakeholders with Up Your Arts, and they agree to it. So what I'm asking for your direction tonight is whether you approve this memorandum of understanding moving forward for them.
Okay. I will entertain a motion if you've read the memorandum and understand, from our last meeting what we're trying to do.
I move approval.
Thank you, Mr. Allen.
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? Motion carried unanimously. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
we're at almost 2 hours. Can we have 5 minutes, please?
Oh, absolutely, if the board,
Do you mind?
yes, that'd be fine, absolutely.
Thank you. I need to thank the person who put the table together. Thank you so much.
All right. We'll take a 5-minute break. Thank you.
I'm lucky to have clothes that are clean. All right. see if I can make it. Yes, sir. Yep. I replaced my water. I got me, yeah. Thank you so much, John. I think so. Well, yep. There is a 2-hour rule that you can call.
Yeah, no 2-hour
That
rule.
after you're not supposed to go past 2 hours. But
All right, I'll call the meeting back to order.
thank you, Mayor.
You're welcome. Thank you, Alderman Spencer. We will begin, I believe, with item 7. That is the Waterline Extension for Marina discussion and other preliminary requests. You have in your packet a Section 19-136, General Policies. And part of the discussion concerns this sentence: each developer of land, whether subdivided or not, shall be responsible for all costs associated with the extension of water and sewer service, including rights of way. So we have a discussion on this, and I will turn it over to the City Manager, Mr. Hargrove, and Public Services Assistant Director, Tom Stanley.
Southport Marina is in the process of building a new dry dock storage building. And part of the requirements of that building is it needs to have a sprinkler system on the inside. Unfortunately, one of the problems we have down in that area, low water pressure. We barely have enough water pressure down in that area to fight a current fire with the first dry storage building. So it's obviously going to be a problem for the second dry storage building. So the Marina approached us about a waterline extension. They wanted to create a loop down to that building, which obviously by doing that loop, it's going to increase water pressure in that part of town. They have approached us about being a partner in this endeavor. The public benefit that comes from that, well, let me back up just one second. Our ordinance is pretty clear about what happens with an extension of a water line, that it is the sole responsibility of the developer. However, there is some public benefit. There is a case to be made that there is some public benefit for this particular water line extension, and the fact that it will increase water pressure in that particular area of town. Right now, we really don't have the ability to knock down a fire in that general location. With the increased water pressure, we'd be able to fight fire more effectively and reduce the risk of that fire being transferred to other structures in the area. At this time, I'd like to bring Battalion Chief Treadway up and let him talk a little bit more about the firefighting situation down there.
Good evening. Thank you, Mayor and Board of Aldermen, for allowing me the opportunity to speak. I wanted to affirm that the water line on West Street near the Southport Marina needs to be upgraded. The current pressure on the line is very inadequate, and looping the system or extending the line would increase the pressure and be a great asset to firefighting operations. Currently, the hydrants in that area flow around 600 gallons per minute. With the upgrade, it would double the pressure and hydrant flow to 1,200 gallons per minute. This situation has been addressed previously in the past by Chief Drew and the board at a board retreat as a project in the future, and it's my understanding that with this project being discussed, it may eliminate the possibility of this. It is my opinion that the Waterline Extension will be a benefit not only to those in the area, but our fire department in case of emergency situation. Thank you.
Thank you, Battalion Chief. Any questions for the chief?
I have a question. Please educate me on how extending the water line increases the water pressure.
Okay, right now it's a dead end line, so your water runs to the end of the line and stops. We pull the water off of the hydrant prior to the end of the stop, and it pulls every bit of that water out. If you loop the system, it continues the water pressure and ups our volume to what we have with the truck.
Describe what that loop would be, and
That would be more Tom Stanley's area than mine. Okay.
Right, Mr. Stanley. I think it has to do with Bernoulli's equation also from physics years ago. But thank y'all for that. Appreciate it.
Good evening, all. Right now, west-west is a dead-end line, and it obviously, has inadequate fire flow for the marina, so I'm told. I'm not a firefighter. And with the addition to possible future developments, as far as the loop goes, the loop will come from the end of West St. George. There's a dead end 6-inch on West St. George, as well as Quartermaster Turn or Quartermaster Drive in the Jonas Creek subdivision. What would happen is they would tie in both those dead end lines, run an extension to just in front of the Southport Marina, and make it a big loop. With that, you will be pulling from 3 separate flows versus the single flow at the end of West Street. That'll significantly increase volume from around, like Chief Treadway say, 650 gallons a minute up to 1,500 gallons per minute at operating pressure, which is a tremendous amount of fire flow. Also, anytime you have a loop and can get rid of dead ends, you increase water quality, because the water at dead ends is exactly that. It's a dead end. It has nowhere to go. So with it being a loop system, the water will continuously loop around. There wouldn't be any dead ends.
does the city have a lot of dead ends?
Don't ask me to give you a number, but yes, the city does. The city does have dead ends. The city does have dead ends.
Address this, then we really should look to start addressing it everywhere in the city. Is that right?
Not necessarily so, because there are points in the city to where there aren't options to create loops, if that makes any sense. Not every dead end may be to a point to where there is future development. It may be at the end of the dead road that absolutely is exactly that, a dead road that has no other, future development involved.
And Tom, would it be fair to say that this is, me over here, is development driven? And I guess what concerns me is if this conversation has gone on before, I would have imagined it should have been, the marina should have done this when they built the first big building, if the sprinkler system conversation is part of the concern. So
if you're asking me if this is development driven for the future, I would say absolutely so. That would be my opinion. I actually received a set of plans today, just coincidentally, of a plan review from the engineer, Norris and Tunstall, which has a permit in it to the state for waterline extension of 220 feet of 6-inch waterline, 800 feet of 8-inch waterline, and the purpose was to serve 33 single-family residences. So yes, that my answer to that question would be yes.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
I think, I mean, to me, I'm unclear because the ordinance is pretty clear. So I don't see, I understand all the conversation, and I understand that there must be a need, but it's development driven, this need. So the ordinance is clear, you know, because it's hard. How do we justify to our citizens when we could not, by state statute, reduce rates for people with financial challenges in our community because of how everybody has to pay for everything equally? And so that for me is a struggle.
I was just reiterating what the city manager had said, that developers, whether it's a subdivision or a single piece of property, are responsible for the extension of water and sewer service to that property. And so I think we're on a slippery slope if we approve this. I have an additional question that just came up to me, and it troubles me. I live on West Brunswick Street, so I'm in that area where you're describing, or the deputy fire chief was saying, we might not get enough pressure. Do I have a conflict of interest if I vote on this?
You own shares in the marina.
I'm sorry?
Yes.
No, I mean, the benefit to me would be that I have a better chance of my house being protected if embers came flying to my house.
Can I just make a point before we go any further? I think it would be only fair if we allowed Mr. Robin Rose of the Southport Marina to come up and state his case, and then we could continue this discussion. Is everybody okay with that? Okay, thank you. Tom,
Point, he was
don't
going
go
to
far.
speak, yeah, so absolutely, whenever.
Okay, here we are again. I'm Robin Rose, 606 West Street, Southport Marina. I actually was going to do a presentation like these guys did, but they did a much better job than I can do. I'm joined here today with Jody Bland, who's with Norris Tunstall Engineers. He is available for questions after I get through. As far as the benefits to the town, it would be, I mean, everybody knows that's a dead-end line. And I want to go back to one of your comments, Ms. Mosteller, about why wasn't it done on the first building. At that time, Jonas Creek wasn't there. It was just a concept, and it wasn't there. So that's why there wasn't any looping at that time. There was nowhere to loop to. So I just wanted you to know that. At the time, we were right on that cusp of we just barely were able to get enough pressure and enough water flow to make that work. Ralph Cardwell was the utilities director at that time, and we discussed several things. This is when the county was coming on to the city and bringing water in, and there was a question about buying this $60,000 valve to allow more water to come down through there. We talked about recommissioning the Southport water tower, which would bring more pressure to us. I mean, we went round and round, but in the end, we found a way to do it. There was a valve put on with the county tapped into the city, and that made enough water to come down there, but it's just barely. And the reason it was just barely is because it went to a dead-end line. There was no circulation there. I think you guys have heard tonight how much of an advantage this will be for the city as well as for Southport. I'm not saying that, you know, this is a win-win situation for both of us. We're asking for your participation in that. other municipalities that we have dealt with in the past, because of maybe not being in the budget or have some financial strains at the time, have issued the developer, in a developer agreement, fee voucher credits on future water or sewer taps, or vouchers for building permits. In other words, there was a way for the city to be a part of that, and in some cases we've done that. Absolutely right. There's also in all municipalities, hey, developer has to pay for everything. You got it, you build it, you do everything. But there's where the developer agreement comes in, where I'll just tell you on another project we're doing right now, we're upsizing all the utility lines. Well, we were able to work out a credit for those moving down the road. We built a big sewer plant as well. There's going to be credits coming back to the developer for that. Not all, but a proportionate share. So all I'm asking tonight is I'm asking for a little bit of help from the town in whatever way, shape, fashion, or form you may see to do this, because it's a win-win for both of us. Obviously, it's going to get done regardless, but I think it benefits the town enough to where we'd like for you to participate with us. So that's all I have to say, and if you need any questions here, I have Jordy, you want to come? And I think all of you guys know Phil Norris. I mean, he's local here, and we've also engaged with Hickman Utilities. He's local here as well. A good guy, and I think, John, when we talked, the first time we talked about this, we had a number, but it looks like with him, it's going to be half that number. So, you know, that number came from, you know, a plug number from an engineer. So he called me today and said he'd have me a solid number. If not tomorrow, it would be no later than Tuesday next week. So we'll know exactly what that number is to put it in. And to do that, we're going to have to dedicate the line to the town. I mean, there's so many things that happen after that, but it's not, it's just the cost of getting that line in and getting it plugged in is what we're asking for. So I can go on and on. You'd like to say a few words about?
Jody Bland, excuse me, Norris and Tunstall Engineering. Just to briefly describe it, anytime you loop a water main, you provide some balance and equalization to the system. So by connecting the two, you're able to pull water from two sources, basically, from one feed and two feeds to a single point, say a fire, or it even provides that benefit upstream. So by looping that system, if you had a fire upstream on one of these basically dead end loops now, you're able to pull water around the corner to that. So what you're doing is you're, again, balance and equalization in the system. So we had a hydrant test ran, and we used that to create a model, and what we've ran so far is up to 1,500 GPM, gallons per minute. And what that does is that'll model around 45 PSI, which is far above what's needed for your minimum fire flow requirements for the state. So it's a definite benefit. Something else for your utilities department, it helps relieve a small maintenance burden. Every dead end line should be purged, should be basically drained off. That water at the end of the line stagnates over time. Although it is chlorinated, it goes bad. So this eliminates two maintenance burdens, so because these two in the lines no longer have to be purged because they're now connected and pulling, and the water's moving. So that's another benefit. So any other questions?
Alderwoman Davis, how is your water quality? Yes, ma'am, you.
I can't hear your question.
Yet, how is your water quality?
Quality is excellent.
Okay. There was a problem 10, 15 years ago where that area in between Brunswick and West was having terrible water results. Where Mayor Spencer, Sandy Spencer, and those homes in between, the water was terrible. And this is a long time ago, but no one in your neighborhood has a problem with water quality at this time? Because I know it used to be so bad they couldn't drink it, they couldn't shower in it.
Well, we have my next door neighbors here. Well, is it okay if I ask him?
Mr. Wilson.
Mr. Wilson, do you have a problem with your water? Okay.
Is it fairly clean? Any iron, any residual? I hate to ask you, do you see anything that long-term affect? Yep. Yes, sir. Yep. Yes, sir. And that van was an insert that they put in the old clay pipe to clean up the water. Is that what you were talking about? Yes, sir. I remember it because I was at a friend's house and saw it, and it was unreal. So, if there's a benefit to West-West, the whole block, it's something we should definitely partner with and try to work out some kind of a compromise.
One thing to add to that, Mr. Wilson, I may be incorrect. I do not know every inch of Southport's system, especially a lot of the older stuff, as nobody knows. I do believe that you are served off of a small diameter line. David, and you may be able to help me with this, a small diameter line that comes off of West Street. Therefore, you are, if I'm correct, that is a small diameter line which is dead ends. I do believe so. Miss, you, I do believe, are served off a 6-inch line that was reran, I'm not sure when, in the early to mid 2000s, the new 6-inch line that run down Brunswick Street. Wasn't there a new 6-inch water line run down Brunswick Street, David? Okay. Because I know there's a new 6-inch PVC line down Brunswick Street. And I believe that's what you were served on. So you guys are served on two different lines, which is why your quality and pressure is better, and Mr. Wilson, which is why your quality and pressure is lower. At that far up, I don't think he's going to see any benefit whatsoever.
Question for Mr. Rose. Yep, it's me, it's Laura. I was curious, since the ordinance we have, and we've had this ordinance in effect for quite a while, states that the developer would be responsible for improvements and extensions. Why did you choose to come forward with this request? Anything to do with the vote that was taken in October? The vote that was taken in October with Rhett Street, where there was a parcel of land that was being considered for subdivision, and without a replacement of the existing 6-inch line to an 8-inch line, there wouldn't be able to supply water to that subdivided land, and there was a vote taken to pay for the cost of that replacement. Okay. Okay, I was just curious. Okay.
Can you give us a suggestion of what you would like us to do? In credits, I heard you basically credits on future tap fees. 50% of the cost. Yes, sir. I was asking you. Let's cut to the chase. Yes, sir. Okay. there are more than 16 lots in that neighborhood that are going to be developed, and I was asking, you know, how many of them were his? Yes. And he's asking for some credit on the impact fees of those to build this line.
Yeah. And that's, you've got to do the math on that just to figure out what that may be. And I'll have a better sight of that at the proposal in from Mr. Hickman.
There's a common good here in increasing our fire capacity, increasing our water quality. And we need to work with people that are willing to help us.
So I'll ask for
He-
comments
wait.
from the board if there's a mechanism for that, or, you know, continue the discussion.
They're going to do, they have to do the water line anyway. This isn't, they can't do it without our help. We're about, I don't know, 2,100 residential properties. Melanie, is that about what we are? So we're asking our 2,100 households to spend their tax dollars. And I appreciate that it'll improve the water quality, but also they developed Jonas Creek, and they're going to develop more. So I don't see, it's the cost of doing business. That's why we say that developers have to do it according to the ordinance. I'm struggling to see how, when we've got other dead ends, I didn't even know that, but we've got other dead ends that development's going to happen somewhere, and then I just don't think we're that financial community that can participate in this when it is truly development driven. We weren't talking about it until this development.
So you have two options before you. You can be a purist. We have it in the policy, section 19-136. Or does the board want to look for a mechanism to, as Mr. Robin Rose has stated, decrease 50% tap fee and also decrease the building permit fee? So continue the discussion, and I'll certainly entertain a motion at some point.
Sir, I think that any decision we make policy-wise on development needs to be fair and consistent. And while this request comes with a deferment of fees and everything like that because they anticipate additional construction, they have another developer that doesn't have that. They have one project that they come forward and say they want us to pay a percentage of, and they can't accept it in credits or something for other development because that's not the way they're going to operate. So we want to be able to be consistent. We don't have this kind of money budgeted. And if we did a percentage, then if we did a percentage for each project that comes to us when they want to expand the hammocks or they want to do some other houses on some other street, how do we know ahead of time what to budget, you know, for that, so that we have money to allocate to those things, whether you agree on 5%. Each project's going to have a different amount. So those are two options that if you chose to do one or the other. But also, I really do think that this is somewhat tied to the vote we took in October, where we had a request that deviated from this policy, and that it was someone was going to buy some land and subdivide it into 3 other properties. That's a developer. That wasn't just a single household that they were going to, and so we voted to go ahead and change the existing water line, and to extend service to that plot that could be subdivided to 3. And I think that have other people ask for this kind of assistance is where we're at.
I think that was two different things.
That's a totally different situation, because the situation on Rhett Street, first of all, it was sewer, not water, but regardless, that was an old existing line that was entirely in the city right away, and that entirely was owned by the city, that was inadequate to provide service, and therefore the city paid to upgrade it. The quote developer, home builder, whatever you want to call it, paid out of their own pocket to extend the line from our right-of-way, our manhole, to their property. So it's not even remotely the same.
And
thing.
Asking us to upgrade this line so that we can supply water.
No, no.
Yeah, because our existing
That's not
line
correct.
is not sufficient.
That's not correct. They're building an entirely new line from here to here. It's not an upgrade of an existing line, and it's not our line, it's their line.
And west-west is ours, the dead-end line that sits there right now. Just
But
increasing
nothing's being
the
done to
diameter,
it.
that won't make a difference as far as supplying another building. You have to do the engineering part of it. Is just increasing the diameter of an existing line wouldn't provide the pressure that you need for that second building to be built. It has to be a loop.
What I would say about the Rhett Street, I did not view it quite the same way as you do. They had two old manholes that they are redoing, and then you would not keep that same smaller line. That would not be today's standard if you're repairing, redoing, whatever it is. You would use today's standard would be the 8-inch line. So between the two manholes, that's what that's what I thought I understood. So I really think it's sort of a whole different conversation, to me, than this is all driven. Right now, today, we've been operating with this water system, but now we've got more development, anticipating more development, and I just don't see it as the same thing.
Neither do I. I think this is an apples and oranges, just starting with the fact that Rhett Street was sewer line. But we did not add line. Am I correct? No, we upgraded the existing line, but it's something that we had to do anyway. It was not to the benefit of a developer. A developer brought it to our attention, certainly, but this is something that we would have had to do at some point anyway. But now what we're asked to do now is to help pay for a significant extension. And, you know, A, we don't have the money, and two, this is something that we would be doing for one developer, and I imagine many other developers would wonder, why didn't I get that? You know, we've got some big subdivisions going up right now, and they're having to pay for everything.
I agree. I'm not disputing that. I'm as water and sewer in the first line. It says we will maintain and operate. It doesn't say that we will upgrade them upon request because somebody wants to develop land, right? That was the responsibility of a developer. And it was presented to us that somebody wanted to buy land, subdivide it, so they could have it developed. So they were making us a request for us to upgrade something where the interpretation had been that or landowner. And that's similar to what is being asked of us, to upgrade, improve something existing now so a developer can benefit from it. So I see it as similar. I think we have one of two things we can do. We can decide to uphold our policy as written and just leave it as that, or we can reverse the action that we took on Rhett Street and uphold our policy.
The difference is that the policy says each developer of land shall be responsible for costs associated with the extension of water and sewer service. What we did on Rhett Street had nothing to do with extending water and sewer service. What we did on Rhett Street was simply a maintenance project to take care and upgrade of our existing infrastructure. It's not the same thing.
I agree, and I think
Yeah.
we should stick to our policy.
Yeah, that was maintenance on Rhett Street, and here it's clear that it would be a new system. As you see on the map up in up on the board and also in front of you. It goes from, looks like west-west to the end of St. George. And would be that would create that loop and would increase the pressure and that type thing. And if you're going to be a purist with the ordinance, then and again, it's up to the board, it's your motion, but the city would not be responsible for that. The city gets benefit, but it would not be responsible for that.
I want to reiterate that, I'm very, very concerned about setting this precedent, and it would be precedental. It would, other developers will come and say, why not for me too?
Actually have to amend the policy. You would have to do this, but what is requested, you would have to amend the policy. The city attorney would have to do that.
Mayor, I'll make one more statement, I'm done. I think it's safe to say, and we can go back and look at the records, that over the last 15 years, that the water pressure and the water flow down West Street has declined. That's why we were real nervous about it. That's why the fire department was real nervous about it, because it had declined. So, if we're going to, for the sake of argument, go up here and say, okay, what other projects have you approved that took that pressure and that water away from West Street? So if you want to throw the blame on somebody or whatever, I can turn it back around on South. There's no reason that water pressure should be going down every year we get tested. There's no reason for that. So there's my argument there for that. Now, in the whole picture, I think it's works for the town and works for Southport. Been here 15 years. Well, you've heard me say it 1,000 times. I think we're an asset to this community. We work hard to be an asset. We run a first-class business. We'd like for you to partner with us. That's going to be your choice. If you choose not to, that's going to be your choice as well. But we're asking. So thank you for hearing me out. Thank you for hearing people we brought up today, and we sure would appreciate your consideration.
Thank you, Mr. Rose. I will entertain further discussion. I'll entertain a motion, whatever the board prefers.
Call for?
The only thing we need a motion for is to approve our participation.
Well, or a motion that you follow. So, yeah, that you're following the ordinance. You don't have to, but that's your choice. If you don't, your ordinance is clear, and if that's what you want to go with, then I guess you don't need a motion for that. But there needs to be just a statement that we plan to follow the ordinance, and that'll be the end of that. If that's the board's
I think we
recommendation.
should follow the ordinance. I think we should follow the ordinance.
All right. Okay, then we'll move on. Is that good with you, City Manager? Do we need anything further than that on this?
I believe that Ms. Alderman Lowe Davis wanted to hear from David Fox concerning Waterline Extension. Do you still want to hear from that now that we've decided that we're going to take a strict interpretation of the ordinance, Alderman Davis? Okay. Thank you.
So we will move to item 8. Smitty Sign Shop property discussion on sale of easement. You have a map and it shows you where Smitty's is on 211, his sign shop. And I'll turn it over to Mr. Hargrove and City Planner Mr. Lloyd.
Okay, so I'm going to turn this over to City Planner Mr. Lloyd. He was the one that was actually questioned about this particular project, and I think he can do a much better job explaining it than I can. Thank you, Thomas.
Yes, so I was contacted by Mr. Keys, and he is one of the managing partners of OKIB Investments, and they own the property that Smitty Sign Shop is on. as well as the property behind Smitty's Sign Shop. And they're looking to either make some investment on the property or potentially sell the property. And their bank has informed them that in order to do either of things, they need to have a easement formalized on that property. And currently, and I believe everybody has a map as well, but currently it's a triangle piece of property, and their driveway actually encroaches on the 60-foot easement that the city has there. And really what they're just looking for is a formalized easement so they can provide that to their bank. And I did talk to Mike Eisenberg about this, and he said that 60-foot is a public right-of-way easement, and that we can't really deny them, but that we can, formalize it and provide them one for, their use. So I'm happy to answer any questions, because really the driveway's already there, so we wouldn't be obligated to make any kind of improvements or anything on it, but they're just looking to kind of have a description of that for their use moving forward.
Questions for Mr. Lloyd?
Yeah, so, Thomas, I'm confused about multiple things here, but if this, we have a 60-foot right-of-way right there, correct? That's what that is. So.
Yeah, so it's part of the old Roy Daniel property, and the Roy Daniel deeded that to the city.
So, and they're adjacent. Their property abuts our right-of-way, just like any other property abuts a city right-of-way. So why do they need an easement to access a city right-of-way? You don't have an easement to access your driveway off of a city right-of-way. I'm struggling to understand what's different about this than any other property that abuts a city street or a city right-of-way.
I think it's just more of an issue that their bank is having on it. Give me 1 second. I had a paper from Mike over there at my chair. Yeah, so John, Mike said exactly the same thing, but for whatever reason, they're wanting a written easement formalized. But Mike's comment was, we own the easement technically, but it is still an easement, and we would not be able to deny access anyways. He said he saw no problem with granting them a written easement if they need that to document to their bank.
Thomas, is this the same easement that went back to Osprey?
Right.
So now, a written easement, would that stop us from putting a road through there if we ever wanted to?
Not necessarily. They would still be able to use that road as well.
Are they going to improve it?
Mike said that we would just need to put some stipulations in there that they can't improve it other than what it is currently.
Well, if they built, what would they do to get in there? They would go over dirt?
I think that they're just trying to prove to their bank, and once again, getting what they have told to me, they are just trying to have something formalized so they can show their bank that they do in fact have access to this property, legal access. I understand what John is saying, and I think he's right, but
and I appreciate the position you're in, and I'm not trying to make your life difficult, but I will, because that's what aldermen do, and I've been in Thomas's positions, I can say that. Have you talked to the bank, and about what it is, what their issue is, and what it is they exactly want, and why they need this easement when the property's adjacent to
I
a
don't
right-of-way?
have their bank information. This gentleman's actually from the mountains of North Carolina. I think he's from Lenore.
I mean, it
So
seems like maybe if we could talk to the bank more, and I don't think the bank understands what the situation is. And I feel like that if it were explained to them, that it would make the whole thing go away. But
we can certainly bring that up to the gentleman, and he is not. Nope.
I'd like to see more conversation take place about this before we start granting people an easement. I mean, and actually find out what
I agree.
what's the problem, what's the issue, and
Yeah, and it'd be better,
somebody
think,
doesn't
if we had Mike
understand
to ask
what the
questions.
situation is, in my opinion.
Okay, that sounds good on Smitty's sign shop, so we will, is there any further discussion? Otherwise, we can move on to item 9. We will need more information about this before discussing an easement and that type thing. Is that fair, board? Okay, all right. Item 9, the right-of-way parking discussion. Manager Hargrove.
During last month's board meeting, Alderman Spencer asked me a question about what the city was doing about folks parking in our right-of-way, specifically concerning commercial equipment like dump trucks, trailers with tractors on them, and that sort of thing. And I told him I'd report back to him this month. Although there's been a 30-day lag in this, I want everyone to understand that this is not an issue that it's just recent. It's one that's been going on for quite a while. We have taken the approach up to this point in fining people, and that really has failed to rectify the situation. They just pretty much ignore it. So in discussion with Thomas Lloyd and Chief Coring, we started tossing about some different ideas about how we could put a little bit of teeth into what we were doing to try to get compliance from these habitual offenders. Came up with an idea that we're going to look at the areas that we had the most significant problems, and we identified 4, I believe, maybe 5 of those areas. And so what we were going to do is look to maybe add some teeth to our ordinance to create some no parking zones in these areas. And so that's what I'm bringing to you this evening, Alderman Spencer, is that's what we're trying to do, is we're trying to put some teeth into our ordinance to prevent these commercial vehicles from parking in our right-of-way in residential neighborhoods, simply because it doesn't meet the character of our neighborhoods. And we want to be able to try to fix this problem. I will leave it at this point. Chief Coring, would you like to add anything to that? Okay. At this point, I'll turn it over to the board to let them consider this ordinance or any alternative to help us rectify this problem. Thank you.
Yeah, I'd just like to know, shouldn't it apply to all of Southport instead of just these areas?
This is just a start, Alderman Lombardi. These are the first areas that we felt like had significant problems. And so they're the first ones that are identified. However, there will be more coming in the future if this is the direction you decide to go.
Yeah, would there be a problem just naming those few and not the rest? That's my concern.
No, sir. After conversation with our city attorney, you can look at the list that I've got before you. We can name one. We can name them all. We can do 2 of the 4. We can really designate the no parking zones that we want to. However, I do want you to realize that this is a kind of a stopgap measure for these particular areas, and it is a concern all over town. So it might not be the best alternative. We're just trying to put some teeth into getting some results here. I think it does need to be studied for citywide ordinance change, but that's up to you folks.
You can't prohibit we can't prohibit parking in the right-of-way in the whole city. Nobody would have anywhere to park. I don't, and frankly, I'm having some heartburn with singling out, these 4 specific areas, just kind of seemingly in a random fashion without having some kind of more comprehensive plan and look at it.
It's not we're prohibiting parking in the right of way. We would like to prohibit commercial equipment, heavy duty commercial equipment parking in our right of way in neighborhoods. That's where the concern is, but this is just an idea for y'all to consider. We're just trying to put some teeth in this ordinance so that we can get some compliance. This is something that we've struggled with. I know we've struggled with it since I've been here, and from my understanding, we've struggled with it for quite a few years now. I think this is part of an overall larger problem with encroachment in the city's right-of-ways.
I think you're absolutely right on that, but I think it's agreed that we'd be singling out certain ones that may be problem areas, but there are probably plenty of others that annoy the neighbors, for example, that just haven't been brought to our attention. I'd feel a whole lot better if I really knew what we were talking about. Would it be possible at the January meeting to see pictures of the commercial not the vehicles, but the commercial equipment parked on public right-of-way? I'm having trouble envisioning what this is.
Well, and also this ordinance says the parking of vehicles. It just says vehicles. That's a Miata. That's anything. If you live downtown and you don't have a driveway, like I don't, let's say I owned a landscape company and I have a sign on the side of my truck that says John's Landscaping. So what we're saying essentially is I can't park that car in front of my house at night when I come home from work. So I'm really struggling with this.
So you're talking about large tractors, large trailers. It is on. You're talking about, and these are issues that we're going to need to look at, because up to 7 to 9 vehicles in the mornings, the employees come and park, and then they go to work, and there are 8 or 9 vehicles scattered around a residential neighborhood, and then they're rotating boats, trucks, cars, because there's not enough room in the driveway where you've got 7 vehicles parked in a driveway. Is there a maximum number of vehicles that should be parked in someone's driveway?
How about if you just said a residence automobile?
I think we need policy. I think what this is showing is we need policy. I don't have much appetite for singling out something and slamming it into an ordinance. That seems very inappropriate.
Yep.
So I'd like to be part of a policy group about this, because I do think that these are larger conversations. We got people with boats in places and stuff that might be annoying. I'm just telling you, this is a interesting conversation, and we need to develop policy and involve our code people, our police people that know what's going on, and we need safety policy. I see things happening that are within the ordinance, but they're up against a sidewalk and a stop sign. So I think this is a broad conversation and not just punching out an ordinance without policy.
Okay,
I appreciate the efforts that they've made to try to do it. But what is happening is year after year after year, things keep happening, and then after a period of time, they holler that they've been there for this long. Why should you mess with them now, when at some point you can't stop it? And our problem is it is no longer respecting each other and our neighbors. It makes the city enforce the proper way to be a good neighbor. So I'm fine with if we don't move forward with that, but it's something is going to have to be done. We're going to have to come up with some kind of answer. And pictures, I get them every morning, so I'll be glad to share them with you.
No, I agree with you, Mark. It's an issue, but
Oh, yeah.
we've got to develop some policy
Okay,
for sure.
so,
I think we've all been talking for what, at least a year, if not a lot more, about encroachments and problems in the right-of-way and need for code enforcement and so on, and yet we have to be fair to everybody in the city.
well, I had this conversation with Bruce. Y'all remember him? This was early on. And in terms of where do you draw the line? Do you go ahead and say, all right, what's there is there, and then we have to stop? Or, I mean, we need to set up some sort of mechanism. So if you want to have a committee on this, I'll certainly entertain that, to look at the right-of-way. And we can certainly, decide that. Don't have to decide it tonight. But we certainly do have to have a policy for the right-of-way, and that will certainly be on our list when we do our workshop in January or early February. That'll be part of our discussion. Sound good? Okay.
So I'd like to make one final comment. We understand at the staff level that this is probably not the best alternative. We also understand that what we have right now is just not got enough teeth to it to enforce anything. So we're open to all ideas that can be generated to help us put some teeth in our policy to get some movement on this. And so, we understand that this is not the best solution. It is a solution. So we are open to anything that a committee could bring to the city staff to make Southport a better place to live without looking out your front door and seeing a bulldozer. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hargrove. That is an excellent point, and that's what we'll work on at our workshop, and it'll be on our list for 2021. Item 10, House Street sidewalk discussion. That is concerning extension from 9th Street to Famous Subs. We all know where that is. And there's a question of a crosswalk needing to be placed there and increased costs. And I'll call on Mr. Stanley and City Manager Hargrove. Both of y'all, whoever wants to speak, be happy to hear from one or both.
Tom, I'm going to let you roll with this one.
Again, hi guys. I got a little handout I'd like to walk around and give to each other. You laid out. That way you can go over. You can follow through with me if that'd be okay. Okay.
In our packet, is it start with initial engineering fees, $18,000?
It does.
Okay, we should have that in our packet.
Good enough. Good enough. Then I'll retract that. So what started out is what seemingly was going to be a simple project, and I'll go on by saying that I just stepped into this project probably in the last 6, 7, 8 months. It's been an ongoing up in the air project, I believe, since Kerry McDuffie was city manager. But it's becoming a costly project, and now the NCDOT is throwing a crosswalk at the intersections of West 9th Street and House Street, or actually 9th Street and House Street. It significantly driven the costs up. The sidewalk we had designed, there's 2 sections of sidewalk. One section, the main section will go from West 9th Street, just before Walgreens enters, one lot parcel back from the Walgreens. We didn't stretch it all the way to Walgreens in anticipation of the road widening. And the other section, part 2 of this sidewalk, extends the sidewalk on the hospital side at Fodell and goes to Stewart Avenue. But you can see the engineering costs with the initial engineering costs the $5,000 that for their traffic review and crosswalk agreement to NCDOT. That was $23,000. We've already paid that. When NCDOT threw the crosswalk at us, it kind of threw a monkey wrench in the plans. Our current engineer does not engineer crosswalks, so he had to, seek other firms. And although we haven't paid that or even signed the agreement, that cost to Raymond Camp is $10,000. And that's a total of $33,000 just in engineering without a shovel hitting the ground at all. And then the cost that the crosswalk was $12,000 to $14,000 if we can use the existing poles that are at Ninth Street intersection, or it could go up to $18,000 to $20,000 if we had to upgrade the poles at Ninth Street intersection. Well, that takes us to, $53,000, a possible $53,000, again, without any concrete being laid or a shovel in the ground. I did reach out to Phil Norris, our engineer, and asked him to contact NCDOT to see if there was any alternative to a crosswalk, pedestrian crosswalk at Ninth Street. An example would be to, instead of having pedestrian traffic cross at Ninth Street at the intersection of House Street, to turn them down Ninth Street towards Lord Street and cross not at the signaled intersection. I don't know how that will work, considering Ninth Street, regardless, is a state road, but maybe with it not being at a four-way intersection, maybe they'll grant us some leniency. I spoke with Phil today to get an update, and as of yet, he has not heard back from NCDOT as far as an alternative. Or sidewalk contractor, and 4,200 to 4,500 square feet of sidewalk, it cost us up to $65,000, $55,000 to $65,000. That takes us well above $110,000. That does not include any bump outs at intersections. That does not include any, the little handicap ramps and the little templates they use, for the handicap crosswalks. Nor does it include any painting, nor does it include a section of storm drain and box that has to be installed at the 14th Street and House Street intersection. So this project can certainly, I could see that. Another, and I can't get any quotes on that because we don't know what all is going to be involved, and obviously we haven't reached out for quotes from this, but I can $15,000 to $25,000 for that portion of the project. So, we're looking well upwards of, $125,000 to $140,000, I think would be a good estimate for this project, which is, I think, quite a bit more than we had anticipated. And, I believe the majority of that here was going to come from the Powell Bill Fund, which is $113,000 and some change, which wouldn't cover the complete project, but there are some, other options as far as funding as well.
Tom, besides is the crosswalk just pavement marking? Or is it a special crosswalk?
No, it'll be pedestrian signaling as well, like at Moore Street and House Street. It'll be pedestrian crosswalk, pedestrian signaling.
But it's just going to be pavement marking?
Pavement marking, yes.
Okay.
And signaling.
So are you saying, this is my night to be confused, I guess, because I'm not following this very well at all. Are you saying that DOT is requiring us to put in the crosswalk?
That's exactly what I'm saying, yes.
So the sidewalks going up, from between Fodale and Stewart, it's on the east side, and then it crosses over at 9th Street and goes up the west side?
No. It'll be on both sides, if that's which route we go. It'll continue on the west side from 9th Street, because there's already sidewalk coming from downtown all the way to 9th Street.
Okay.
It'll extend that sidewalk on that side of the road to almost Walgreens.
Okay.
The adjacent side of the road, the east side of the road, it'll extend, the sidewalk already goes from downtown to the hospital entrance at Fodale.
Okay.
It'll extend that 2 blocks from Fodale to Stewart Avenue on the east side.
Plan for this, anywhere we could see?
Not, I do have a set of plans.
If we just do it on the west side, do we have to have a crosswalk?
Crosswalk has nothing to do with the Fodale crossing at all. That is on the 9th Street side. I threw down there a blurb. For instance, if a snag would be if
The crosswalk. What street does the crosswalk go across?
How?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
No crosswalk walk over to the other side?
And I'm assuming, no, there isn't. And I'm presuming it's because, first off, it's 2 state roads, and probably the biggest thing is because of school traffic, buses pulling in. That would be my biggest assumption.
And this is in no way going to interfere with the widening of the road?
That's further. That's
Yeah, I know,
way
it's
further
further
down.
back.
Yes, that's way further down.
What if we leave out the block from 9th Street to the next street north and pick it back up from there? And just have one block that doesn't have a sidewalk?
That is definitely not my decision. I don't.
Tell,
Build the crosswalk.
well, my question would be, is we have roads in town that still need paving. Do we have monies to do that, or could we repurpose this money to work on our roads? Because I'm telling you, I'm conflicted now. It was one thing when it was one price and we had more money, but to spend, I mean, when we've still got roads in our neighborhoods that need repair, could we repurpose this money and put some of that right? That's in
Again,
the
I
form
think
of a
that would be
question.
your decision.
No, I'm asking,
It
do
is,
you think
yeah.
that,
Well, I don't see why not. We haven't committed to anything here. We'd just be out some engineering fees. You know, we'd be, at this point, I think we'd be out $23,000.
Here, can I suggest we kick this back to our January retreat meeting too, and have some
Absolutely.
maps and maybe more, look at it and more discussion about it?
I mean, it is in the right of way, right? And says the sidewalk, so I think this would certainly be another.
and then maybe,
that.
Tom, you know what I would like? I would like, and you probably may have already given it to me, but a list of intersections. I know like on Clarendon or Burrington over in there, there's some road in the middle that's not right. I mean, we've got places. If we could have a sort of an understanding of the cost of all that to make it right, if we could utilize the PAL bill money to do those things.
Yeah, I completely agree that I think we should put this on hold, that don't spend any more money on it. Let's see if we ever get any feedback from DOT on do we have options. And for January, come to us with some recommendations that if we were going to spend PAL bill money instead on just roads, what would be your top 5, 10 locations, you know, what that we could spend that money on, and just leave this sidewalk project live for now. We're not benefiting the citizens that much. It's just not worth it.
I'd just like to defend us. It wasn't our idea to do these sidewalks. It was the 2 managers ago, Carrie. Right. And then
Absolutely.
threw some strings in on us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So just as an FYI, I have already tasked public services with identifying intersections and streets and areas
Cool.
in need of paving. That is going to take a little while, and we'll try to have that ready for you. Do you think we can have that ready by the January meeting? I know we just spoke about it this past, 2 meetings ago?
We did. You gave me to the end of January, but I could try and speed up that project to accommodate the
Do it at the workshop. That will give you more time.
Okay.
How about that? Let's do it at the workshop. That will give you more time.
Okay.
And really, Tom, I think we're looking, and David, we're looking for y'all's priorities. You know, some of them are worse than others, and what ought to be done because something's going to fail. And I mean, you're really the driver.
Yeah, this discussion is really a financial discussion, but it's also a priority issue, and what's the best way for the city to use its resources. So let's think of it that way.
Tom, you on that, being that's my business as
Yes,
far
sir.
as the road work.
Yes, sir.
If you need help,
I'll have your people call my people. Yeah. Absolutely, sir.
There we go. Yeah, that would be great, Mr. Lombardi. Thank you. And thank you, Tom. Any
Yes,
further
sir.
questions?
Word on the street. Word on the street. Word on the street. Thank you.
Thank you for that discussion. Thank you so much. Item 11, employee Christmas bonus discussion. You know, I talked to Alderman Allen, and it never really can be large enough, but the board appreciates the service the employees give to our city and citizens. So I'll turn it over to the city manager, Mr. Hargrove.
I promise this one's going to be easier, I hope. So it's time to make a decision whether you're going to award Christmas bonuses this year. We have budgeted them in this year's budget, and they are set for $500 per employee. Before we start doing that process, I would like the alderman's approval or denial. So that's all I need really on that.
Does that include part-time employees?
Melanie, it did last year. A different amount.
Motion to, approve the city manager's proposal for Christmas bonuses to our city employees. Okay. Madam Alderman Davis and Mr. Lombardi seconds. Any further discussion? Okay. All in favor? Passes unanimously. Thank you. All right. Committee reports, and I will start with Alderman Allen.
Thank you. I'll just real quickly talk about, we had our first meeting of the Yacht Basin Overlay District Committee on December 2nd. We got a really nice group there that includes the stakeholders in the Yacht Basin area, business owners, residents, et cetera. Basically, the tact we're on is to come up with we're essentially going to do a small area plan for the Yacht Basin area that will look at the various issues that we're facing down there: land use, zoning, undeveloped parcels, rights of way, traffic safety, pedestrian safety, signage, historic preservation, design, lighting, FEMA issues, stormwater drainage. So we're going to come up with a small area plan that will then be transmitted to the planning board, who will formulate an ordinance that will then come back to the aldermen, with, of course, a great deal of public input along the way. And that ordinance will then help us meet some of those challenges that we're facing down in that area. We set up meeting. The mayor has tasked us to try to get this done by Memorial Day. I think that's very aggressive, and hopefully we will be able to make that happen. Towards that end, we've set up 2 meetings in January and 2 meetings in February, the 1st and 3rd Tuesdays of each month. I think that's the 5th and the 19th and the 2nd and the 16th of February. So anybody that'd like to attend, I'd encourage the public to please attend. We're going to have public comment period at the beginning and the end of each meeting. And obviously there'll be formal public hearings after the process is done and when we're with the planning board and with the aldermen. And if Mayor Pro Tem wants to add anything to that, you good? Okay, and that's all I had. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Mr. Allen. Alderman Spencer. Okay, Alderman Sharkey. Madam Alderman.
Forestry, we have selected the trees that are going to be planted. We have 10. Only had to pay for 9 because one of them, the seller said it seemed a little gnarly looking, but as it grew, it would get better. But for now, we got it for free, and they are very nice sized live oaks. And the planting will begin this winter, later in the winter. I mean, you know, they come with enormous root balls, as Public Works is well aware. I mean, these are good sized live oaks. They're going to look good.
Beautiful. Thank you. Thank you. Mr. Lombardi.
Yeah, I would like to congratulate the Beautification Committee for creating a pollinator garden at Low White Park. We received a certificate of appreciation from the monarch butterfly habitat for creating a monarch habitat. The garden encourages this garden encourages the growth of monarch butterflies, so vital to our society. So that was a nice certificate that we got. I would also like to thank the garden club for what they did at the visitor center and around town, and they did a great job.
Thank you. Mayor. Next up, manager's report.
Thank you, Mayor. So I'm going to do something a little bit different moving forward. I'm going to give you a very generic financial report, numbers that I think are very important. These numbers I don't believe are in your packet, but I'm going to talk about them a little bit here. I always look at the collection report on property taxes and where we are year to date. At this particular point, we've collected 48.11% of property taxes in the city. Compared to last year we only collected 46.90. So we're a little bit ahead. So that's a really good thing. The other number I look at, I pay close attention to, is the amount of money left in each department's budget and how they're spending it. At this particular point in time of the year, most departments should have used about 33% of their budget, which means that they should have about 67% left. I'm happy to report that all departments are pretty close. They're within an acceptable range at this point. Of course, as we move through the year, we'll keep a closer eye on that and maybe curtail some spending as we move forward. But right now, we're looking in really good shape. I got to tell y'all, the city dock's been a chore. We've been given a blanket permit for the repair and maintenance. Our actual repair and maintenance diagram of what we're going to do is sitting in Raleigh right now, and we're hoping for word on that any day. I was hoping to come in here tonight and tell the aldermen and mayor that our repair and maintenance that were going to be done on the city dock had been approved, and we were going to move forward on it, but it's sitting in Raleigh. So hopefully I'll have better news for you in January. The weather tower RFQ for construction of the weather tower are due on December 11th, which is, I believe, tomorrow. And so I should have some information for you at the next board meeting. I'll probably include it in a weekly report next week where we stand with that. But we've got several requests in hand, so we're moving forward with that. Taylor Field, we're almost empty of chips. So it seems to be taking a little bit longer than what we thought, but we're fully anticipating moving forward with that project with everything that needs to happen starting January 2. I would be remiss if I didn't mention Miss Ginger Harper, who donated the land for Taylor Park. We're so grateful for this because without this donation, this park wouldn't be happening. So I think that it really needs to be recognized that through her benevolence that we're going to bring this to a realization. So I would really like to thank her. We have our treatment plant tour tomorrow. In your packet, you'll see the schedule for what we're doing. I would like for everyone to meet at City Hall at 8:15, and we're probably going to need to take several cars because I don't know who is wanting to stay for the project meeting at 1 a.m. I don't know if y'all noticed that. I'm assuming it's 1 p.m., so I'm going to stay for it. And I encourage anyone who wants to stay to do so as well. And there will be a box lunch there for folks, of course, socially distanced. I do want to bring Tom Stanley. He's done such a wonderful job tonight, and I'd like to bring him up one last time to give us an update on House Street, the sewer project on House Street. And other than that, that's about all I have for you this evening.
Again, sewer project on House Street, it's been painstaking to get to this point, to say the least, but they should be breaking ground tomorrow or Monday, and they will be doing so on House Street, in between Nash Street and West Street. We chose that location to keep the construction from where it was originally going to begin, at the foot of the project at Bay Street, moving towards Moore Street, because that's our most condensed, business area, and during this season, at the mayor's suggestion, and it was a good suggestion, to kind of keep the construction from that area, obviously not the best conditions to start a project, but definitely we'll make it work. But and we chose the area we did due to the least amount of impact to that particular block. The project, even though it'll take 6 to 8 months, they do see getting a huge number of about 60 feet a day in the ground. Insert sarcasm there. It's a big project. It'll be a difficult project, and obviously, those are at depths of 12 to 15 feet, 10 foot deep. And obviously, once they get to shallower areas, 6 foot and below, hopefully they can move on a little faster. But one of the greatest things about this project is the unknowns. The unknown of what in the world is under that road. That hasn't been dug up, most of it since 1913 when the sewer was laid. So it's definitely going to be a learning experience for all of us. I'm just, ask everybody, citizens, customers, visitors, just to be patient as, construction moves forward. Be aware of the road closures and detours, so everybody knows sidewalks will remain open. There will be no construction anywhere on the sidewalks, and also businesses will remain open as well.
How long will it take to do each block then? A couple of weeks?
Well, some block, that's a loaded question, John Allen, because some blocks have 400 feet between manholes. Some blocks have several manholes on each block. So, I would say a minimum probably several weeks per each block, and depending on the number of manholes.
Which way will it proceed?
It'll start downtown going towards out of town. So it'll start from Nash going towards West.
Okay, and then from there it'll go to whatever's next, Brown.
Right, and as soon as they can, they will drop back and start it back as soon as they can to catch things up. So flow will, because there will be elevation difference between the manholes they're starting at, so they'll need to come back and catch that up as soon as possible so there's no restriction in the flow.
And will the street be completely closed at various times, or
Just
will there
block
always
for block will be closed, yes. Each block will be closed.
completely blocked?
Yes, sir.
So you'd have to detour all the way
Yes, sir,
around
and they do have traffic control in-house.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Can you, storage for this project is happening on 9th Street And that has, and there's no indigo project building going on, that the pipe and the manholes and all that down there is for this project?
Absolutely. All the piping and materials down there at 9th Street is for the House Street Sewer project. Absolutely. Any more questions?
Any other questions for Mr. Stanley? Thank you so much, and thank you what you've done for the businesses.
Thank you.
All right, Mr. Hargrove has a couple other items, one or two.
So one other thing I would like to inform the board about, I know you're all riveted by our financial statements. If you have any questions that you would like to be addressed at a board meeting, if you could get that to us on the Monday or Tuesday before the meeting. Some of those questions take a little bit of time to research and find the answer for. I can have those answers for you at that meeting that we're having later on in the week, so that we can get your questions answered. That's all I had to say. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Hargrove. Mayor's comments, and I'm going to loop this so it'll go quicker. I want to thank the First Lady for the decorations, on your desk, and also the wreath and the poinsettias, and also for my outfit. Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate that. I'll make sure I pick it up. This is our 1-year anniversary. Think about a year ago. Think about what this room was filled. It was festive. It was full of many emotions. And we could gather together afterwards and celebrate, not this year. So I want to thank the Board of Aldermen for their hard work and diligence this past year. I thank the city employees for their efforts in cooperation and working together for the betterment of our citizens and our city, and also for accepting a new mayor and a new board members. Transition takes time, and I'm proud of our accomplishments in 2020 under these circumstances, from the pandemic to a hurricane. And I'm proud of our citizens for their resolve and their resilience. A Southport Christmas, the virtual tree lighting. 'Twas the night before Christmas. What a classic reading by former Mayor Robert Howard, Ennis Tobler, Paul Fisher, Tommy Harrelson, Tish Hickman Hatem, and Elliot Hickman, all with deep Southport heritage. Thank you. And I hope you saw that those pictures in the pilot. There was great coverage, so thank you, Lee. A colonial Christmas at the Garrison, just beautiful and historic. The virtual tea at Robert Ruark Inn, so festive. We had DS. Miss Cookie was part of the Winterfest. All were fabulous holiday season events. And I want to thank the Southport Garden Club Garrison House Decoration Committee for bringing the colonial holiday to our city. The Southport Beautification Committee for helping with the wreaths displayed in the city. My thanks to the City of Southport Departments of Tourism and Public Services, who all together helped to create a wonderful Christmas spirit for our city. Especially my thanks to Lisa Anderson, videographer, and Randy Jones as director. Fantastic job on this. Shop in Southport, shop downtown, shop in the village. I want to emphasize this. Support our merchants and restaurants. It's been a difficult year for many of them. I want to thank the retailers who called me concerning the work being performed on South House Street and Moore Street. I appreciate City Manager Mr. Hargrove and Deputy Head of Public Services Tom Stanley in passing on my request to the engineers that, if possible, begin their work 3 blocks north and not block our business district at this important time of year. My father was a merchant, and Christmas sales can be up to 1/3 of the entire business revenue. So work will begin there and not in our downtown business district. Mr. Allen has mentioned the Yacht Basin Advisory Committee. Thank y'all for that. That's a very, very important work. The Weather Tower. I want to thank all who have contributed. And again, my thanks to DSI for their generous comment. I just want to tell you about a check I received in the mail with a business card, and written on the back of the card said, Dave from Walgreens. I mean, how kind is that? Kind and generous. So we're continuing fundraising efforts, and anyone who would like to contribute, please do so. Virtual Flotilla. Please watch this from your home. The annual Winterfest Flotilla has been canceled as a live event. It is not a live event, so the City of Southport is following the Governor's Executive Order 180 for mass gatherings. We're requesting that there not at the waterfront due to the COVID-19 pandemic, and I appreciate all citizens to cooperate and to keep our city and our people safe. The flotilla can be seen virtually at 6 p.m. on Saturday, December 12th on the city website. COVID-19 in North Carolina, 5,500 new cases in one day. Over 250,000 deaths in the United States, just as Alderman Allen was mentioning in our invocation. I'll be giving an update next week concerning the vaccine. Hopefully we can immunize our way out of this pandemic, and I'll give other data and information in the city's continued response. On behalf of myself and the First Lady, we wish everyone a very Merry Christmas and a safe, healthy, and happy New Year, and a better New Year in 2021. So thank you. Staff reports, they're in your agenda packet. I'm sure you've read them and seen them. Board comments. I will start with...
Mayor, for, under staff comments, could we have a comment from Chief Coring about some of the scams that are going on?
You know, staff reports, but if you would like a, that wasn't in his staff report, but you would certainly like, if you'd like him to mention about scams, absolutely.
The reason I'm calling this to your attention is something that happened to me today. I got a phone call, an urgent phone call. Fortunately, I'd missed the call, so I heard it as a voicemail, so I didn't do anything about it. But apparently, my Social Security account is in grave danger, and I needed to call or text immediately the account manager with my Social Security number. So instead, I called Chief Coring.
You're inferring my gray hair. I will also have that phone call. Thank you.
So, we are seeing that it's pretty much a statewide and all across the country, a lot of scams. I know several of our law enforcement partners have been urging our communities to disregard those phone calls, the text messages, the emails, because what they want to try to do is get you to click on something, or if they get you on the phone, they will tell you anything from your grandson is locked up and we need you to send money, or we're all getting calls about, you know, the warranties on vehicles, but they do target seniors and also all populations, but mostly seniors during the holidays, so just please be aware of that. We've been flooded with calls at our police department and through, like I said, throughout the county. It's a problem that we're all seeing, so just disregard those. And if you do, like you have been victim of that, first we want you to check your accounts, call your banks. That's the first line of defense, is to get that card or whatever that's been compromised stopped and canceled, and then reach out to your law enforcement partner, whether it's us or the sheriff's office where the crime occurred. We'll look at that for you, but just steer clear of that. And also just a reminder, a lot of packages are being delivered, so we're encouraging you to be mindful of that. And if you are working, and we all know the Postal Service is working hard to get the packages out. If you're having things delivered, if you're not home, have it at a neighbor's house, or have someone check your porch to be on the lookout, because we do have folks that will steal items off your porch, and we had that here in Southport last year during this time, so we want to encourage you as well there, and we wish you a Merry Christmas, so thank you.
Alderman Allen.
Yep. Just real quick, just wish everybody happy holidays, and if you're so inclined, there's lots of ways to help people here locally that are struggling through the holidays. There's our own Shop with a Cop program, which is excellent. You can drop a check off at the police department. There's an Angel Tree at Walmart you can pull off and buy gifts and presents for local children in need. I'd encourage everybody to do that. Thank you.
Excellent suggestion. Mr. Spencer.
Thanks, sir. It was an honor to be present today to watch Wayne Strickland's retirement. I was glad to be up there. I wish we didn't have face masks on, but that's just the way it is. I got a story. My dear wife came home from school and she said a student of mine was writing a story, and she consulted with Kate Marshall, and Kate gave her a lot of time in an interview about maintaining community animals and that, and I just want to let Kate know that she made an A. So you did a good job, and she wanted to make sure that I came and said that. I wanted to say that. I've been approached to to consider trying to purchase some bricks for the garrison in honor of Norman Holden, Rob Gandy, and Bob Grant, and there might be a few more, but individuals that made it possible for us to have the garrison. I think that there was a really quick time frame where they acted, and it left us with what we have now. And so there was a request to try to honor them with a brick of some sort, and I'd like to try to keep that in your minds and consider doing that, maybe talking about it at the next meeting. So that's, would love to honor them. Personal, I want to welcome my new preacher. His name is Devon Varnum, if that sounds familiar. Devon and Jenny Varnum and their son Sammy J and Beth Ann are going to be entering the pulpit on Sunday, and I invite all of you, well, maybe half of you, to come to the Southport Baptist Church and meet my new minister. And I hope that you'll allow him to come and say the prayer here at some point. And he is a local, young, vibrant individual, and I'm very excited about that. So I want to send a shout out to that. The police department helped me this morning. Renee was out walking her dog, and a coyote stalked her. God bless the coyote, but he did, and it was unnerving. And we want to be vigilant. We want to protect our local animals, but we're also worried about young people going to school and things like that. So please keep your eyes out for each other. She was really unnerved. Let's see here. I guess I'm going to end on a quote. I don't know if I'll do this right. This quote was from a very popular fat man with a red suit. I think it was something when he was getting ready to go out of sight. He said, "Merry Christmas to all, and to all a good night."
Thank you, Alderman Spencer.
That's right.
Alderman Sharkey.
That's right.
I just want to express my appreciation and congratulations to Wayne Strickland on his upcoming retirement. He's been a real big source of assistance to me in my role in planning board and now as alderman. And to the rest of you, staff, employees, citizens, and my fellow elected officials, may you be well and happy and safe this holiday. And I look forward to the workshop in January. Can we have a date for that? Do we have a date? No. Okay. So we're looking forward to January. Thank you.
Lo Davis.
I'll add Merry Christmas and Happy Hanukkah. Please mention to Santa that it's good to shop local. There's nothing that you need or want that you can't get here, frankly. And let me be the first to say Happy New Year. We won't be together again as aldermen until after the new year. And frankly, I'm really looking forward to saying goodbye to 2020.
Mr. Lombardi.
Yeah, before wishing Merry Christmas to everybody, when we were updating the UDO, we talked about creating a manual for specifications, because I pointed out there was no specifications for city streets or curbs, sidewalks, and they said that it couldn't be put in the UDO, but whatever the UDO didn't address, we could address it in a manual, and I'm just hoping we haven't forgot about it. Because there's a lot of things it could include, including parking and code enforcement, lighting, curbs, sidewalks. And also, a couple of years ago, before I was on the board, we went around and we measured, Karen and I measured on a Sunday, all the areas where cars were parking over the roots of trees. And we have some existing poles with the ropes, but a lot of them are falling apart. So we're in the whole city. And we really haven't done anything with that. And I'm just hoping that we can create a manual to cover all this and we can get to it. So, you know, that's my hope, and I would be happy to help with that.
That'd be good.
And I also wish everybody a Merry Christmas.
All right, thank you. Mayor Pro Tem.
I just want to echo what everybody said. 2020 has been especially difficult for a lot of people, especially people with children and also people that are in service industry areas and that sort of thing. And so just remember to share whatever you can with whoever you can. And I hope everybody has a safe and meaningful holiday together.
Thank you. And before we close, I just want to mention our two chiefs back there, Battalion Chief Treadway and Chief Coring. One of my favorite Christmas memories would be them on ladders and helping to decorate the sign in front of City Hall with Tish and Kay Ross. The garland and the wreaths would not be up there without their ladder and expertise. So I just want to thank you for that and for decorating parts of City Hall. I understand you'll be there tomorrow helping the girls there with the tree. Thank you for that. And this meeting was long, but it was successful. Blessings to everyone in Southport, for a happy, safe New Year, and God bless you for a very Merry Christmas. Motion to adjourn? All in favor? Meeting adjourned. Thank you.